West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this, what is it, Thursday? It's Monday, Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday. Jeez. I'm still in a pancake hangover.
Bro, I'm sitting here going, Bobby?
Yeah, I know. Dude,
Bobby?
Oh, I ate so much food yesterday at IHOP with the fans. It was so cool.
I need my waffle.
Lord.
I need my cheesecake waffle.
That was neat. You were like, can I have this? And just, bloop, it appeared.
It appeared.
And just magic things would appear all the time.
Eat like kings.
Yes.
At the IHOP.
I did not have lunch yesterday.
Yeah,
I couldn't manage it. I was like, there's no
Yeah,
way.
I had breakfast and dinner.
Yeah, I barely had dinner. Dinner for me was a bowl of cereal and a small bowl, and that's all I could do. Because counting. Okay, here we go. Just for fun, we got to count. What did you eat yesterday? So, and we'll trade things. So, your first thing that you ate in the morning, mine was the New York cheesecake waffle.
I had the anytime tacos.
Oh yeah, you did. Yes, and then okay, what was the second thing I had?
Hash brown.
I got blueberry pancakes.
Yeah, then I had some hash browns.
And then you had the waffle.
Then the waffle.
Yes, and
some
then
bacon.
Yes, exactly. And then after that, I got the beef tri-tips.
Yeah, and then they brought us those drinks.
Yeah, the lemonades, and they count because they have a popsicle in them, so that counts. You got to count those.
You had a lemonade with a popsicle in it, dude.
I love that. I felt like such a kid. And then they brought us the iced coffee that was really good, the cold brew.
And milkshakes?
Yeah, and then milkshakes, and then a sundae. I had part of a sundae. That's a waffle
and then we had
sundae.
the dippers.
Yes, and the dippers. Oh my Lord. Oh, I'm getting diabetes just from listening to it. This is awful. It was so. Oh, we were so gluttonous. It was wonderful.
So.
Oh my gosh.
Bill and I are not big rock stars in the way that we get like perks.
No, never. No perks.
In the way that Garth Brooks might get.
Yeah. No. We can't go into anywhere in Denver and go, do you know who I am?
Yeah.
And if I pull that, they kick me out. They're like, yes, we do know who you are. That's why I asked you to leave in the first place, sir. Yes.
But every once in a while, thanks to the good people at IHOP, we eat like kings.
It was amazing. Bobby and the entire staff there. That was really cool. And got to give a huge shout out to Blake making the drive all the way down. That was wonderful. And the listeners that came out and hung out with us as well were really fun. Met a lot of really, really cool people. And heard a lot of stories.
Francis from Golden.
Yes. Francis that was there. It was
Joan
wonderful.
from
Joan from Lakewood. It was,
And then you and Rich Wyatt
yes.
spoke afterwards.
Yes, we did. That was really cool. It was nice. Rich hung around because I have no control over that or not. And he decided to hang around. And as I'm packing up, he comes over and he goes, hey, can we talk? And I'm like, that's interesting. Okay. And we talked it out, and I really understand where he's coming from, and I understand his emotion behind it and why he reacts the way that he does to some of the things that I say. And I understand why he views some of the things that I say about Tina Peters in the case to be very personal and to be attacks. And I kind of outlined to him why it's not personal to me, that I would help raise the money and do whatever I can to help her because I think that she's in an awful situation, but we diverge on the how and why she got into that situation. And that is fair. That is okay for reasonable people to do that. But yeah, he and I are cool.
Reasonable people? Yeah, you guys are cool.
Yeah, we are cool. We are absolutely 110% cool. In fact, we were talking about he has a charity event coming up in May that I was very interested in getting the show involved in. I think it'd be wonderful for us. But yeah, so we are completely and totally, so despite what was on the videos and on the radio, we are completely and totally cool. It was really nice to talk to him afterwards. And I had a lot of respect that he wanted to come up and talk to me afterwards. That's totally different. So for me, I'm like, that goes a long way as far as a lot of understanding and how he explained where he was coming to this to me made a hell of a lot of sense. And I'm like, okay, I get it. And there were some other things that he's like, and I'm mad about this and this and this. And oh, I get it. And I talked to him about my perspective and my perception. And yeah, we are cool. Yeah, it was absolutely hugged it out. Yeah. I know, but that's how the show goes.
People
we
can
be,
talk.
Yeah, we can sit there and just butt heads back and forth. Joe from Arvada and myself. But Joe's fantastic. So, yeah, that's the thing.
That's great.
It's really cool. So, yeah, Rich and I are cool. There is no bad blood, no consternation, no tension, nothing like that. Yeah, Rich and I are absolutely cool, which is wonderful. And I've got a lot of credit for him because I didn't have control over him staying around and being able to talk to him afterwards. There's nothing I had control over. And so that, I have to give 110% credit to him doing that, because otherwise that conversation could not and would not have happened. So thank you, Rich. Yeah, appreciate it.
Go.
Yeah, it was good.
All right, coming up here in just a second, Ken Cuccinelli is going to join us, National Chairman of the Election Transparency Initiative. We're going to talk about the SAVE Act that Chip Roy is pushing through, got through the House, does it have a chance in the Senate? And what do we need to do to improve our election security in this country? But now is time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
.46 and partly cloudy. It's beautiful outside. Just stepped out in Denver, expecting a high of 74 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, a flight from Provo, Utah to Dallas was diverted to Colorado Springs Wednesday after a service dog bit a passenger. I was wondering when this type of thing was going to happen. One person was taken to the local hospital after they landed in the Springs. An emergency landing at DIA last weekend may have been caused by a rabbit. It caused an engine fire, so the plane turned around and landed in Denver after heading to Edmonton. Air traffic recordings also indicate the pilot believed the rabbit got sucked into the engine while it was preparing for takeoff. No one was hurt, thankfully. Wow. You ever been on one of those where a rabbit jumps in the engine?
Right.
God.
I mean, those aren't like on the ground, so he must have been just at the right moment, right time. Either he jumped up or just got sucked.
Found a ramp or some stairs or something along the way. There are a lot of rabbits out there near DIA. A jury has found UCCS shooter Nicholas Jordan guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. Race Montgomery, the father of Celie Montgomery, who was one of the victims, shared a written statement in front of the court before sentencing.
One of the hardest moments for me was when all of us had to listen how Celie's life was possibly taken in a series of unfortunate events, like she was collateral damage.
Jordan was accused of shooting Montgomery and Samuel Knopp in a dorm room 14 months ago. Both succumbed to their injuries. Jordan was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
I'm here at the airport. I'm about to board my flight for San Salvador. The goal of this mission is to let the Trump administration, to let the government of El Salvador know that we are going to keep fighting.
Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen says El Salvador wouldn't let him talk or speak with the MS-13 gang member who's from El Salvador and was leeching off Maryland. Van Hollen flew to El Salvador Wednesday to try to get President Bukele to send him back to Maryland because Van Hollen hates Trump so much. He's willing to do that on the taxpayers' dime, evidently. Patty Morin is from Maryland, and we talked about her on Wednesday. Her daughter was brutally murdered by an illegal MS-13 gangbanger from El Salvador, but this clown Van Hollen never even called her. She was at the White House on Wednesday.
To have a senator from Maryland who didn't even acknowledge or barely acknowledged my daughter and the brutal death that she endured, leaving her 5 children without a mother and now a grandbaby without a grandmother, so that he can use my taxpayer money to fly to El Salvador to bring back someone that's not even an American citizen. Why does that person have more right than I do, or my daughter, or my grandchildren.
Yeah, that's sick. I agree. All right, here is the poster child for narcissism, Gayle King. She's wealthy enough to be able to sit her butt in a rocket and take a trip, and she wants a trophy.
Space is not an either or, it's a both and. And because you do something in space doesn't mean you're taking anything away from Earth. And what you're doing in space is trying to make things better here on Earth. What Blue Origin wants to do is take the waste here and figure out a way to put it in space to make our planet cleaner. I mean, Jeff Bezos has so many ideas, and the people that are working there are really devoted and dedicated to making our planet a better place. That's number one. Number two,
here it comes.
Have you been? Have you been? If you've been and you still feel that way after you come back, please let's have a conversation. Number three, please don't call it a ride. That is not a friggin' ride. Whenever a man goes up, you have never said to an astronaut, boy, what a ride. You know, we duplicated the same trajectory that Alan Shepard did back in the day, pretty much. No one called that a ride. It was called a flight. It was called a journey, because a ride implies that it's something frivolous or something that's lighthearted.
You took a ride.
There's nothing frivolous about what we did.
Yes, it was.
And the machine that we were on, and what it took for the people to get that machine up and running, to get us up and get us back down safely.
Yeah, they're the heroes.
So, you know, I'm very disappointed and very saddened by it. And I also say this. What it's doing to inspire other women and young girls, please don't ignore that. I've had so many women and young girls reach out to me, and men too, by the way, men too, that say, wow, I never thought I could do that, but I see you doing it at this stage of my life. Who would have thunk it? Not me. And how inspired they are.
My goodness. I don't want to get on a rocket, but look, you got on a rocket because you have a lot of money. Good for you. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. The Dodgers hold off the Rockies 8-7. Nuggets, Clippers, Game 1, opening round of the playoffs on Saturday, and also this weekend on Saturday, Avs at the Stars in Game 1. 44 in Brighton, 45 in Littleton, and it is 46. Yeah, let me look at that. Yeah, 46 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
Liable for sexual abuse. Of course he's lying and abusing and manipulating the stock market too.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The spring weather we've been enjoying is going to come to a crashing end with a strong cold front. Temperatures today will reach the upper 60s and lower 70s, but it will get a lot colder by late this afternoon and evening. And later today, there will be scattered rain showers and thunderstorms developing. Rain and snow turning to wet snow tonight. Could see an inch or two on the grassy areas by morning. Lows upper 20s. Much colder Friday. Highs only 30s. Lingering snow Friday night. Lows 20s. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
right, a new bill in Congress is aiming to protect the integrity of federal elections. It's called the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or SAVE Act, sponsored by Congressman Chip Roy and dozens of House Republicans. The bill would require anyone registering to vote in a federal election to provide proof of U.S. citizenship, no exceptions. That means no more registering with just a signature or sworn statement. Voters would need to show a U.S. passport, birth certificate, military ID, or other official documentation to prove they're American citizens. The law would apply to all voter registration methods, online, in person, by mail, or at the DMV. States would also be required to maintain clean voter rolls and remove non-citizens based on verified information. And any election official who registers someone without proper proof could face criminal penalties. Supporters say it's common sense safeguard to make sure only U.S. citizens vote. Critics, well, you can already bet they're calling it voter suppression. But the SAVE Act makes one thing clear. Voting in America is a right for citizens only. Joining us to provide some context and answer your questions is Ken Cuccinelli, National Chairman of Election Transparency Initiative. Ken, great to see you. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, good morning.
It's great to be with you guys. I'm sorry you're facing snow. but I imagine you're used to it.
It's one of those. There's an old saying in Colorado: never plant until after Mother's Day, and we get reminded why this week.
Good stuff.
Ken, tell us about the SAVE Act. It's making it through the House, on its way to the Senate. We in Colorado are especially sensitive to this because you can register to vote with a utility bill in the state of Colorado. So tell us why SAVE Act is so important.
Yeah, and you walked through a lot of the simple application of it. People might ask the question, isn't it already illegal for non-citizens to vote? Yes, it is. And yet there's no way for states to enforce it. Between federal court case laws, including one opinion issued by Justice Scalia, the federal law has really been tied up in knots, and it isn't useful. And this SAVE Act is to clean all that up and to actually set a requirement to prove your citizenship when you register to vote if you're going to vote in a federal election. And it's using simple documentation, birth certificate, passport, real ID that identifies you as a citizen, those sorts of things. And that already happened, that we already do this all over for all sorts of things, whether it's opening a bank account or any other kind of thing, getting a job. And the Dems, to my shock, only 4 of them voted for it in the House. 5 of them voted for it last September when it first passed the House. And so people listening to you need to contact their senators and say, hey, get on the stick. We need you to vote for this. I really thought this was going to be more of a common sense layup. And by the way, the Democrats who voted for it said, look, this is just common sense. This isn't all these crazy things that people are saying. And you're right. Oh, it's racist. It's voter suppression. It's this, it's that. Those are the attacks on it. You note that they're all ad hominem attacks. No one actually lays out how this is bad in its operation. And that tells me that there are an awful lot of people that want non-citizens to vote. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing for America, and we need to work our way past that.
That voice you're hearing is Ken Cuccinelli, National Chairman of Election Transparency Initiative. Ken, we're seeing headlines coming out that the women who get married now and change their name are going to have a harder time being registered to vote. Talk to us about that particular charge.
Yes, well, I'm glad the Democrats are finally concerned about marriage. But cultivating married women hasn't been a political activity they've been involved in very much. Married women who change their name to their husband's name, which is the vast majority, already go through the documentation changing process to get proper documentation. So this is not a new process. For example, they get a new driver's license with their new last name on it, and they do it the same way they're going to do it with the SAVE Act. So if you show up to register to vote and you're a married woman and you present your birth certificate, which obviously would have your original last name on it, you would present the same documentation you did when you got married with respect to changing your name on your documents, on things like your driver's license. It's no different than that. It's no harder than that. And all of the married women in America are already doing it and have done it. So this is just an attempt to find a complaint about the bill. They particularly like it because they can cast it as anti-woman, and which they love, but it's not realistic. It isn't consistent with the experience of everyone in America so far, but they're desperate to fight this bill, and one can ask why. Well, DOGE uncovered the massive use of Social Security numbers for unqualified voters to register to vote. They crossed the Medicaid rolls where they found, I want to say, 1.3 million of these Social Security numbers that don't belong to actual Americans used to register for Medicaid. And that team decided to check just against a few states' voter rolls with those same Social Security numbers, and they found thousands of people not only who had registered to vote, but who had voted. So this is a real problem. It needs a real solution, and Congress has to solve it. The president's executive order takes all the reasonable steps that the president can take in this space with, for example, the Election Assistance Commission, the EAC, and getting them to change their forms to require citizenship information. That would be a big help. But to put it in the law so all the states have to do it, that requires Congress. And that's going to require more Democrats to vote for it, or it's going to require Republicans in Congress, in the Senate specifically, to have the courage to attach this to must-pass legislation. And, the first thing to do is to urge your Democrat senators, which you've got there in Colorado, to actually vote for this.
We got two of them. One's running for governor, Michael Bennet and John Hickenlooper. They're about as far into the progressive tank as you can get at this point.
I know.
We're talking to Ken Cuccinelli. Ken's the national chairman of Election Transparency Initiative. Ken, I think you need 7 Democrat senators to come over and support this. Anyone? Are you hearing any word of any of them that may support the SAVE Act?
So we know is the short answer, but we also haven't started pressing on any of them until just now. So John Ossoff, for example, of Georgia, is up for re-election in 2026. Do you really want to be going back up for election in Georgia, opposing this and defending that position when that was a wipeout position in the last election? If you're Mark Kelly in Arizona and you've been making noises about, how tough you are on the border, well, here's a real substantive opportunity to prove it. So let's see what you got, and we'll find out soon. They're in tough spots. John Fetterman has shown a willingness to cross over, but like you said, it's going to take 7 of them. And that's a reason for you all to call your senators. And, I never give up on anybody. Your odds are better with John Fetterman than with Elizabeth Warren. But you alls are more toward the Elizabeth Warren end. But the fact of the matter is the Democrats are still trying to figure out, what do we do with this issue? Right now, they're insanely out there trying to get an MS-13 member brought back from El Salvador. That's what they're putting their political capital into. They need some common sense positions to take, and this offers an opportunity to actually help America to secure our elections and for them to get on the normal side of of the average American. And every so often, I imagine that's got to be helpful if you want their votes.
That's Ken Cuccinelli, National Chairman of the Election Transparency Initiative. So, Ken, I'm going to tell you how it happens here in Colorado, and then I want you to explain to our listeners how the SAVE Act would change it. So, in the state of Colorado, when you register to get a license, you're automatically registered to vote. You actually have to opt out of it. So you're automatically registered to vote. Now, the Secretary of State has a separate driver's license for illegal immigrants here in the state. So if you get that license doesn't automatically register to vote. They're separate. But for everybody else, it's an automatic register to vote. Then we're an all mail-in ballot state, so we carpet bomb the entire state of Colorado with mail-in ballots. And then the only thing that really is a check on that is signature verification. And then you have election judges if it's disputed. If you register to vote outside of your driver's license, all you need is a pay stub or some form or some utility bill, and then you can register to vote. That's really the only thing that's necessary. So how would the SAVE Act change what Colorado currently does?
That's a great question. So in all of those circumstances, whether you're at a DMV or whether you're coming into your local election office, you would have to present citizenship documents, and that, we don't have a registration of citizens in America. That means you show a birth certificate that matches your current government ID. This is where the question about married women comes in, and they would show the documentation they showed when they changed their name on their driver's license, same thing. A passport will do it. Those kinds of documents where they first guarantee your citizenship before they issue the document. And then you register to vote. Those would be required in all states, so it would dramatically expand the security of the Colorado voter rolls going forward only. This is only forward-looking. It doesn't go back and clean out your voter rolls. Nobody has to come back in because of the federal law to re-register, if you will. This is intended to just help things going forward. And the in-person version where you've only got to show a utility bill or something along those lines would go away, with the more stringent requirement of proving that who you are and your citizenship, not what mail lands in your mailbox. And obviously, this raises the security of the overall election, increases confidence in the outcome of our elections, that they were honest and not stolen. And that's what we're after at the Election Transparency Initiative. We support the SAVE Act. I give the speaker a lot of credit for ensuring that this was a priority enough to come to the floor early in the congressional term. So the Senate now has lots of time to work on this. And it'll first go to the Rules Committee, which is chaired by Mitch McConnell, and then to the floor. Although there's actually a debate about bringing it straight to the floor in the Senate and skipping the committee. Mitch McConnell doesn't want to do that, of course, because that reduces his ability to lay his hands on it. But I think we need to get through that vote, see which Democrats are going to vote with us, and if we don't get to 7, then we really need to urge our Republican senators to be looking at must-pass legislation that this can be added to as an amendment.
That's Ken Cuccinelli, National Chairman of Election Transparency Initiative, here on the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking about the SAVE Act, and I guess where I want to start is the idea of, do we have any information or anything showing that there is large-scale voter fraud on a level of which it would change the outcome of an election?
So when DOJ found all of the millions of misused Social Security numbers, they took one program, the Medicaid program, and bounced those off the voter rolls of just a few states, and found thousands of them actually voting. And so,
could they be
but they
wrong?
didn't analyze.
Could
they
DOJ
didn't
be
analyze. Oh, anybody can be wrong.
Yeah, and Doge has a track record of being wrong, especially about Social Security information so far. They came out.
Well,
yeah, they came out and said they came out and talked about the idea of people over 100 years.
Do you want me
Social
to
Security.
talk? Why am I on here?
I was giving the example of where they've been wrong.
But they've been right a lot more than they've been wrong.
I would disagree, but okay,
I'm
continue.
not suggesting that you just. So let's take these few thousand people. And that's the only characterization I'm aware of. I haven't seen any hard count. No one, myself included, is suggesting you just go knock those people off the voter rolls. But what should be done is those voter registrations should be run backwards to ground to make sure they are actually appropriately registered to vote. So I'm not suggesting that Doge gets to decide local election decisions, but they have identified people using Social Security numbers and that those people are actually voting. And we also know that Joe Biden had a policy in place to require all the federal agencies to dump everybody onto all the voter rolls and or to register to them to vote, And so Medicaid naturally shows up doing that. And it's rather logical how this problem could arise over the last 4 years. So that problem now needs to be fixed. The SAVE Act would help fix it. So would running the information discovered on the misuse of Social Security numbers to ground in election systems. So I look forward to seeing both of those things happen.
Yeah, although I think you're operating.
I'm afraid
But you're operating. I believe you're operating off an assumption that Doge is correct, and the information that we have, even the Heritage Foundation did a decade-long examination of voters and looking for voter fraud, and they couldn't find anything significant. But what I'm worried about is that we are making an issue out of something that isn't necessarily a problem. We haven't been able to demonstrate that voter fraud is a significant problem in U.S. elections, and what we're doing is we're starting a whole bunch of new processes and procedures and talking about this being important for something that so far we haven't been able to prove exists, at least not on a large enough scale for it necessarily to be a concern.
So the Patriot Act has required you to prove a lot of these same things for 15 years, and I would assert that not a single terrorist has been uncovered nor stopped by doing that. I don't recall complaints about that back then. And here we have our fundamental elections that are the foundation of our constitutional republic, and securing those elections to just U.S. citizens, expanding the value of citizenship, seems well worth doing, particularly when we do have so many problems in our elections. And we do have elections that turn on just a few votes, where we've just had a president, the last president, who invited millions and millions of illegal aliens to enter with an open borders policy and insisted on using all federal agencies as voter turnout efforts and voter registration efforts, totally inappropriate at the federal level, and yet that was done. And now we have to go clean it up. The SAVE Act is only one part of cleaning it up. And I would urge all the listeners to call their senators, urge them to support the SAVE Act, and look forward to seeing it pass into law eventually in the next year and a half. And with that, I'm afraid I have to duck out.
I'm so sorry, Ken. I appreciate you've been more than generous with your time. I'm sorry I took you long. I appreciate you being generous with the time, and I appreciate the conversation. Thank you so much, sir. This has been really good.
Ken Cuccinelli, National Chairman of the Election Transparency Initiative. Want to hear your thoughts on that. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. Do you agree with him? That, look, this is, our elections are so important. Taking the step with the SAVE Act is common sense to make sure that the actual people that should be deciding who our elected officials are and leaders are the ones doing it.
Yeah,
and then we don't have other people interfering.
Yeah, and then we didn't get to it, but the thing I was going to look at is when Kansas did a test of what is contained inside the SAVE Act. They had about 30,000 people that were denied the ability to register. When they went backwards, 99% of those people were American citizens. So the people that were denied in the program when they did a basic test run of the SAVE Act in Kansas, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority, 99% of the people denied the registration, the ability to register to vote.
And why was
citizens.
that?
I'll have to go look at all the details, but the issue being that when they ran it and went through it, the people that were denied were actual citizens. And And I understand the reason to be concerned about it. And this would be something, if Ken had more time, we'd talk about is, should the burden of proof in this necessarily rise to the level of the individual registering or the government? Because part of what Ken was talking about with Social Security is he wanted the government to go back through and to run those numbers to ground to find out whether or not that person was registered. And that's kind of my question. Is the burden supposed to be on the American citizen, or is the burden on the government? And that's kind of an interesting question. So, but again, I wish Ken had more time, but I appreciate him.
All right. Want to hear from you. You're welcome to join the conversation via the phone lines, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. 720-819-5115 is the text line. All right. What are you doing this Sunday? Hopefully celebrating Easter, and I want to talk to you about a great place where you can do that. That's the Black Eyed Pea of Colorado, locally owned and operated by Steve and Michelle. I love this restaurant. With 8 locations, there's sure to be one near you. When's the last time you took the family to eat at the Black Eyed Pea? This Sunday being Easter, what are your plans? Make sure it includes the Easter celebration at the Black Eyed Pea. They'll be serving glazed ham with brown sugar glazed ham steak served with 2 sides. Or maybe you'd like their roast turkey dinner, hand-carved turkey served with stuffing and turkey gravy. It comes with 2 sides as well. Maybe you'd like both, roasted turkey and glazed ham. That's an option too. Or there's the hand-carved prime rib, 12 ounces of slow-cooked prime rib with 2 sides. Be sure to save room for their fresh-baked cobbler served with ice cream. It's the Easter celebration on April 20th at the Black Eyed Pea. I love everything about this restaurant. I know you will as well. Let them do the cooking for you and keep it in Colorado. Visit the Black Eyed Pea near you. Great opportunity this weekend. Eat at the Black Eyed Pea. All right, we'll get to your phone calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. If you go to open a bank account, you get a job, you want to drive, you need to show your birth certificate, proof of citizenship. You got to demonstrate exactly who you are. Why don't we do that with voting? The SAVE Act wants to make that a requirement. State of Colorado, all you need is a utility bill to register to vote. Who's right in this situation? Is it better to get more people out there involved in the democratic process, and we shouldn't really create many hurdles for them to do that? Or is it really important to make sure that actual citizens, the people that should be voting, are voting? Let's go to the phone lines. Mary in Wyoming. Good morning, Mary. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Hey, morning, gentlemen. Bill, I'm changing what I was talking about because, like I said,
please.
as far as that. But what I want to address is the issue about that heritage thing. You always quote that as documentation that, well, it isn't that big of a thing. And I shared with you that I know 3 that actually, even to this day, who are illegals, and they are voting, and they get their ballot in the mail, and they got it from when La Raza was doing voter registration drives. And then when, and I go back to my time with Tancredo, I was a volunteer. The Republican Party sent me a list, and I lived in Commerce City at the time. So my neighborhood was full of illegals and legal Hispanics. But on that list when I was to call, and for get out the vote. And those people, when I would call, first of all, that was a waste of my time as a volunteer. Nobody answers their phone anymore. You wait until he calls. You know what I mean? So it was a waste of my time. But when I did, the answering machines were in Spanish. So, and that was, I had 2 pages, over 100 names to call. And my point is that were those people included and checked out on that heritage form? I think it's a bigger issue.
The issue is
I think it's a bigger issue.
Yeah, the thing is that the heritage, it's the largest study that I've seen done basically on the issue, and the as far as number of people and as far as time. And so I understand that you knew 3 people, but that's not necessarily significant. And that's why I go back to those type of studies and those type of investigations. And I have yet to see one that points to large scale systemic fraud. Now, I never say that our elections, unlike a lot of the Democrats, and I have to reinforce this, I am not a Democrat. I've never been a registered Democrat, for people that are joining the show that are somewhat new as far as listeners. But and as far as the Democrats here in Colorado say that we have the gold standard, I disagree. I think there are flaws and problems in each and every election. What I'm looking for is significance. And if I'm going to implement a lot of these new rules and changes, which again involve process, procedure, but also money, I want to make sure that we're solving a problem that would be significant. And that's the issue. And between you and me, Mary, I have a little bit of a problem with some of these Republicans, especially Republican states, being upset about election integrity when they do things like withdraw from ERIC, which is the voter registration verification program that goes across states. I understand that people think that it's some sort of liberal something or another, but there isn't another system. 1, we haven't shown that the system is flawed. 2, there's no other way to check. And so what I keep looking at is that some of the people, not yourself included, and not many of our listeners, but some of the people included in the group that is yelling and screaming about election integrity are the same people that withdrew from systems like ERIC that would allow you to enforce election integrity. And so that's what I'm worried about, is I'm worried that the SAVE Act comes to the conclusion that our elections are rife with fraud, and we must do all of this stuff in order to stop all the rampant fraud. But nobody yet has been able to come in and say, look at all the fraud that is changing elections. I'm not against changing some of these rules, but what I'm against is the idea that we assume that our elections are being stolen based on fraud when we haven't been able to prove it. Make sense?
No, that to me doesn't make sense, because my concern is that I remember when I got my driver's license renewed in Colorado, and right behind me was and in front of me were, and they were illegals. I mean, and they were getting driver's licenses, and all they had to do was check the boxes. You now say later on that was corrected. They now get a separate, but at the beginning they didn't.
No, they did
got
at the beginning.
same damn.
No, there were different codes on it.
Not at the very beginning.
There were different codes on it. Yeah, they didn't. That's I have no information that
but
shows.
I think the point, and Mary, we've got to get to You Choose the News here, but the point from my perspective is this goes a long way to help bury a lot of these concerns, and we can move forward as a country. All right, we got You Choose the News coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, it's that time of the morning, Bill, to give the people what they really want, which is some You Choose the News.
Yes, it is time where we get to play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. I have spent moments this morning scouring the interwebs for really, really stupid stories about us humans, giving them even more ridiculous headlines so that we can play this fake radio news game show. Why in the world would we do something this silly and waste valuable airtime? Well, because nobody in charge has any idea we are doing this. Yes, they don't know this is a giant secret, so shh. Keep it secret or all in trouble. Well, okay. Keep it secret or I'm in trouble. It's pretty much how it works. Alrighty. So, here's the deal. Blake Olson is in the news department. Jeff Hunt in the studio. Gentlemen, here are your choices, sirs. Headline number 1. Government comes after young entrepreneur. Headline number 2. Quick, call Arthur or Charlie. Headline number 3. Ding dong, the bells are gonna chime. Pull out the stopper, we'll have a whopper. And headline number 4, stop complaining, sweet cheeks. Mr. Hunt, your choice.
Let's do the government entrepreneur.
Yes, government coming after a young entrepreneur. Well, Australia is charging a young Swedish teenager, and all he's trying to do is start his own little business. This is an example of the government coming in and crushing the dreams and hopes of a young entrepreneur. All he wanted to do was use encrypted communication apps to help plan contract killings. All he wanted to do is kill people for money. It was a side project. He was doing it in his own encrypted app, and authorities allege the 15-year-old used an encrypted application to facilitate plans for overseas contract killings on behalf of a transnational criminal syndicate. Again.
And how old was he?
15.
Whoa.
I know, 15.
Check in on the parents on that one.
Yes, 15, and the dude is helping plan contract killings for an international criminal syndicate. I was just trying to complete the final episode of final level of Mario. That's all I was doing.
Right.
I was not necessarily shooting that high. Yes, not looking to have people killed. Alrighty.
What's wrong with you?
I know, exactly. I should have had my nose to the grindstone that early. Alrighty, Blake Olson, sir, your choices. Quick, call Arthur or Charlie, or ding, or ding dong.
choice.
The bells are gonna chime. Pull out the stopper. We'll have a whopper. Or stop complaining, sweet cheeks.
Let's go with Arthur.
Yes. Quick, call Arthur or Charlie. This one goes out to cartoon fans because you will get the reference. 2 Belgian teenagers were charged this week with wildlife piracy after they were found with thousands of ants packed into test tubes in what Kenyan authorities are saying it's a trend in trafficking smaller, lesser-known species. The 2 19-year-olds were arrested with 5,000 ants at their guest house they were staying at. They told the magistrate they were just collecting the ants for fun. They had no idea that it was illegal.
Some guy opens up his jacket and he's got ants in it.
All the ants. Now, there is another case of a Vietnamese criminal who was charged with illegal trafficking in the same courtroom that day following their arrest while in possession of 400 of the same kind of ants. Now, the issue is they think they were trafficking to markets in Europe and Asia. The species is a distinctive large red-colored harvester ant that is native to East Africa, and evidently people like to have the large East African ants. I had no idea.
Good in cookies.
Yeah. You know, if you get the ants excited and then eat them, they taste like lemon.
I've eaten an ant before.
I've done that. Yeah, I had to do that. Yeah. All right, final choice this morning, gentlemen. Mr. Hunt, choose wisely. Ding dong, the bells are going to chime. Oh, and the Charlie and Arthur reference, that's because they're both aardvarks in the
I
thing.
was wondering.
So, yeah, and Charlie is the ant in the aardvark. Remember the blue aardvark that was chasing around the ant? Yes. And strangely enough, though, he is transgender because in Germany, he's Eloise. He's not Charlie. All righty. Final choice. Ding dong, the bells are going to chime, or pull out the stopper, we'll have a whopper, or stop complaining, sweet cheeks.
Stop complaining.
Yeah, stop complaining, sweet cheeks. It's now okay in New Orleans for city officials to sexually harass their employees as long as it doesn't hurt productivity. Yes, that is what a council decision said, is you can harass them as long as productivity remains the same. Then it's okay to slap them on the places and things. Alrighty, back to you, sir.
You choose the news. All right, you're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. on this Thursday, April 17th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center this hour. Big Supreme Court decision coming down from the United Kingdom that women are women? If there's not a clear example in my mind of how regressive our culture has been, we have to have headline-making decisions coming from the UK Supreme Court ruling that women are women. We're going to get into this and how this impacts the trans debate taking place. But J.K. Rowling smoking a cigar and celebrating. This is a big victory for women in Europe from my perspective. Want to hear from yours and Billy's. We'll get to that, but now it's time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
48 and beautiful outside in Denver. Expecting a high of 74 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, last hour, DJT posting on True Social that he had a very productive call with the president of Mexico yesterday. And then he says, likewise, I met with the highest level Japanese trade representatives. It was a very productive meeting. Every nation, including China, wants to meet. So today it is Italy. So DJT is fired up this hour.
Blake, when you compare that, and we just talked about it yesterday, but we didn't have audio because we were doing the live broadcast, remote broadcast, to Joe Biden's speech and Social Security and just what he did with the 4 years and the disappearing to Delaware and the, sitting on a beach and this Trump is just getting stuff done, man.
Every morning, every night, he's got, I don't know, he sleeps, 3 or 4 hours a day, maybe? I don't know. But he is always moving. The microphones are always open. The cameras are always there. And I love that. The transparency is there. And, yeah, what a stark contrast between the death administration, the last 4 years, and this one. It's just sunshine.
Well, and
bright
look,
sunshine.
I mean, Donald Trump's a unicorn in this sense because I have 4 kids. I do a 4-hour radio show, and then I'm helping out with the family, and then we do our show prep and get ready for the next day. And then I just collapse into bed. I'm exhausted. I don't know how a guy at 75 or whatever he is, 78 years old, has the energy that this guy does, and I'm taking
80. calls
from this country and that country, and I'm doing deals here and doing.
Yeah,
dude, I get exhausted
blast,
just driving the kids' carpool stuff in the afternoons.
Same here, absolutely. But it's inspiring. It really is. And now the word with the young people now is aura. And
he's got it.
He's got it, man. He's got the aura. And, I'm not going to agree with everything that he does or the administration does, but most of it I do, and they're rocking and rolling. So, we have, we're approaching 100 days now. We're getting close. And, man, we are going to see some major changes coming up. It's a great sign. A jury has found UCCS shooter Nicholas Jordan guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. Race Montgomery, the father of Celie Montgomery, who was one of the victims, shared a written statement in front of the court before sentencing.
One of the hardest moments for me was when all of us had to listen how Celie's life was possibly taken in a series of unfortunate events, like she was collateral damage.
Jordan was accused of shooting Celie Montgomery and Samuel Knopp in a dorm room 14 months ago. You'll remember that. Both succumbed to their injuries. Jordan was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. An emergency landing at DIA last weekend may have been caused by a rabbit. It caused an engine fire, so the plane turned around and landed in Denver after heading to Edmonton. Air traffic recordings also indicate the pilot believed the rabbit got sucked into the engine while it was preparing for takeoff. No one was injured, thankfully. A flight from Provo to Dallas was diverted to Colorado Springs on Wednesday after a service dog bit a passenger. And now, if you wondered, yes, that can happen. One person was taken to a local hospital after they landed. Ken Cuccinelli, National Chairman, Election Transparency Initiative, on with Jeff and Billy last hour. He's trying to do his part to improve elections during a time when we all know the garbage the left pulls during election time. And the lefties say it's unfair for women who are married to have to go through the change in name process in order to vote. Now, all of a sudden, the commies care about marriage and married women.
This is not a new process. For example, they get a new driver's license with their new last name on it, and they do it the same way they're going to do it with the SAVE Act. So if you show up to register to vote and you're a married woman and you present your birth certificate, which obviously would have your original last name on it, you would present the same documentation you did when you got married with respect to changing your name.
Wow, don't worry, lefties. It can it really can happen. It's a reality.
I'm here at the airport. I'm about to board my flight for San Salvador. The goal of this mission is to let the Trump administration, to let the government of El Salvador know that we are going to keep fighting.
Yeah, not so much. Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, he can keep on fighting. He says El Salvador wouldn't let him talk or speak with the MS-13 gangbanger who's from El Salvador. What a great place to be
so
president.
help me understand this. This senator just showed up in another country and demanded to do whatever he wanted?
Man, I just think he wanted to try a new restaurant. Honestly.
but this
what a waste.
This seems to be a common problem among progressives, that they think they can just show up in other places, other countries, and just do whatever they want.
Yeah, and demand whatever they want.
Come across our border. You want Social Security? You want Medicaid?
Yeah.
Here you go. Just take it.
Our district judges can do whatever they want, say whatever they want, and demand whatever they want. So certainly he can. This guy. Another one of them. Patty Morin is from Maryland. Remember that her daughter was brutally murdered by an illegal MS-13 gangbanger from El Salvador. But this clown, Van Hollen, never called her, never even talked to her. And she was at the White House Wednesday.
To have a senator from Maryland who didn't even acknowledge or barely acknowledge my daughter and the brutal death that she endured, leaving her 5 children without a mother and now a grandbaby without a grandmother, so that he can use my taxpayer money to fly to El Salvador to bring back someone that's not even an American citizen. Why does that person have more right than I do, or my daughter, or my grandchildren?
It's horrific. It really is. HHS Secretary RFK Jr. raising more awareness on probable causes of autism.
The ASD prevalence rate in 8-year-olds is now 1 in 31. Shocking. There's an extreme risk for boys. Overall, the risk for boys of getting an autism diagnosis in this country is now 1 in 20, and as high in California, which has the best data collection. So it probably also reflects the national trend, 1 in 12.5 boys. The prevalence 2 years ago was 1 in 36.
Wow. RFK Jr. pointing to some vaccines and our food in this country as possible causes, contradicting the CDC, which released a study on Tuesday saying the rise in autism is due in part to the availability of services for early detection and evaluation. Scott Jennings on CNN talking about defunding radical leftists from Harvard.
I think as a political matter, if you went out and argued that to the American people right now and said, well, we're just not going to make it as a country unless we give $9 billion to Harvard that's sitting on $53 billion, you'd get your ass kicked, I imagine, in a political campaign. Now, don't misunderstand. I wish Harvard would actually work something out here. I do agree that these universities are important. They do important work. But I don't agree that we need to continue to fund people who won't listen to us when we say, you have problems. I would argue that it's a national security problem that these Ivy League colleges are turning out people who fundamentally hate Western civilization.
Bingo. Yes. The Dodgers hold off the Rockies 8-7. Nuggets and the Clippers, Game 1, opening round of the playoffs on Saturday in lower downtown Denver. The Avalanche at the Stars in Dallas, Game 1 this weekend. 43 in Boulder, 47 in Englewood, 48 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
CNN does not hate our country. That should go without saying. I've been here for 32 years.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The spring weather we've been enjoying is going to come to a crashing end with a strong cold front. Temperatures today will reach the upper 60s and lower 70s, but it will get a lot colder by late this afternoon and evening. And later today, there will be scattered rain showers and thunderstorms developing. Rain and snow turning to wet snow tonight. Could see an inch or two on the grassy areas by morning. Lows upper 20s. Much colder Friday. Highs only 30s. Lingering snow Friday night. Lows 20s. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, Britain's top court ruled only those born female can be considered women. It's 2025. This is like the perfect example of how regressive our culture has been. Let me say that again. From the Wall Street Journal, Britain's top court ruled that only those born female can be considered women, a landmark judgment that excludes transgender women or men that think they're women from the legal definition and paves the way for tighter limits on female-only spaces and services. The decision Wednesday by UK's Supreme Court came after a years-long legal fight over the definition of a woman in a 2010 equality law and could have far-reaching implications for the protections and freedom given to transgender women in the UK. The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act of 2010 refer to biological women and biological sex, said the court's deputy president, Lord Hodge. The move marks a defeat for the Scottish government in its long-running battle with a women's campaign group over the definition and legal protections for women, as well as access rights to women-only spaces. The campaign group that brought the case, For Women Scotland, that's the name of their group, For Women Scotland, argued that such access should only apply to people who are born female. The court said trans people would still be protected from discrimination on the basis of gender reassignment, and a trans woman could claim sex discrimination because she is perceived to be a woman. Now, basically what happened was they passed into law requirements that you had to have certain amount of women on boards, those types of things. And when trans women or men who think that they're women tried to apply for those board positions, well, women in Scotland got frustrated with it and sued, claiming that it had to be women biologically via sex. That was the intent of the law, and it needs to be followed that way. For me, this is a common sense victory. I've posted videos. I've gone down and tried to talk to progressives about this issue. What is a woman? They can't define it. They have a hard. I put this girl. She's dressed all in steampunk outfit with goggles and glasses. I just put this video up 2 days ago, talking to her and asking her what is a woman. Progressives can't define it, and this to me showcases the problem with trans ideology is that basic definitions fall apart, and then there are real consequences. Men participating in women's sports, men taking positions on boards that legally, in this case, should have gone to a woman. So you have definitional problems, you have confusion, you have basic definitions that can't be made because of this trans ideology. So I think this is a clear victory for women, and it should help us move beyond the idea that you can just change your gender. Bill, your thoughts?
Yeah, strangely enough, you and I are going to disagree on this. However, the odd thing is the court reinforced my position, not yours. It reinforced exactly what I have been saying since we started this discussion, that biological sex is different than gender. It's exactly what the court said, that they defined a woman as the biological sex. It's exactly what I've been saying. And yet they still have a carve-out for discrimination against gender. Exactly what I've been saying. Exactly my approach. The court said...
I'm not sure that's the case, because...
Yes, it said protected not only against discrimination based on the protected characteristics of the gender reassignment. Yes, they still are afforded protections based on their gender, not based on sex. They're different. And that's what I've been saying since Jump Street. They're different. Yes. And I do support this court decision. Yes. It's okay to have a definition.
It seems to me like you're tying yourself in knots here.
No, not at all.
The issue that was being settled in this case was we have a law mandating a certain number of women serve on boards. And they went and looked at the law, which was passed in 2010, and they said that it is connected, directly connected to their biological sex.
No, I believe that's an incorrect interpretation, because if you go back to, again, you were talking about Lord Hodge, what he says is that the way the law is written, it implies biological sex. And that if we look at this applying to gender, there are unintended consequences as far as where it would reach and what it would impact. Yeah. And based on how the language is written, it's directed at biological sex. However, trans women and trans men can still be and should be afforded the protections based on their gender. But that's not how this particular law is written. And this one, he says, is targeting the biological sex, which is completely and totally fair. But again, they ruled not that transgender women aren't women, not that transgender men aren't men. They said that if they present themselves as such, they are treated as such based on discrimination.
Here is the literal headline from the Daily Telegraph. Trans women are not women.
Okay. Did Lord Hodge write that headline? Because
of course, the Daily Telegraph did.
Okay.
But in their analysis, that is exactly what it does.
Not in their analysis. It's in the words they put together in order to make you read the story. That's marketing. That's not necessarily. Yes, they're doing it to have you read it. They're making you come to an incorrect conclusion. Yes, because specifically what Lord Hodge says is that sex and gender are different. And he defines that inside of his ruling. And he says, and I'm okay with the idea that in this law that we want more women of biological sex to be placed in those positions. The weird thing is, this is the weird part, is that also this is just a total tangent though, but that I'm seeing people in the conservative sphere celebrate a quota law. Super weird on that one. I'm just saying that on a side note. I don't want to talk about that, but it's a quota law.
I think they could disagree with that. But,
I know,
so
but I'm just saying the celebration side of it is just
here's my question
strange.
for you. Are trans women women?
Yes, absolutely, based on gender. Sure, not based on sex, but that's different. I've been consistent on this.
Do you understand how this muddles all law?
Yes, I do understand how that can be difficult, but we've had some of these problems in the past, and there should be rulings like this. Like the idea being that when we talk about equal participation in sports, I believe that when you're talking about the physical nature of sports, that it is biological women. If we're talking about the chess team, I don't see biology playing into that, being male or female or your chosen gender. However, basketball, volleyball, track, cross country, yes, absolutely. And that's where these court cases should go. This is absolutely the court case that I had been looking for. Yes, he defines biological sex and then also says that transgender men and women can still be the victims of discrimination based on their chosen gender. That is fair. That, to me, where we are in our society right now, that is completely fair. It's what I've been saying this entire time. However, all those headlines will not lead you to that, because all those headlines want you to read the story. That's the goal of the headline. They're not trying to be factual or accurate necessarily. It's a marketing tool. They're trying to get you to read the story.
Look, Bill, this is all premised on a lie, and the confusion that stems from all this is based upon that lie. That lie being that you can change your gender.
Yeah, you can. Sure you can.
No, you can't.
People have done it for thousands of years.
You are born with it. It is given to you by God, and it is connected directly to your biological sex. And so what ends up happening is we've now tried to create this alternative universe that doesn't actually work, where you can change your gender, and then we have to try to jam it into our law where, okay, now, in your mind, what I just heard from you is that biological sex and gender are different, and yet there are real consequences to having men compete in women's sports. There's real consequences to men, trans women, taking up these gender quotas or these biological sex quotas, and we end up tying ourselves in knots and having to try to have all these carve-outs and anti-discrimination stuff, and it's all based upon a fundamental error in our thinking that you can change your gender.
Now, again, why do you believe that it's premised on a lie? Why do you believe that it is a mistake? Because the idea being, if these people were created by God, why weren't they created by God that way? And we've had transgender people for hundreds and thousands of years. Before the Hindu culture actually had a carve-out for transgender people. And they were celebrated, they were part of a society until the English colonists show up. And then everything changed. But if you go through their history, they had transgender people and they were an accepted part of the culture until the white Europeans show up. And then their culture changed. It was decided to be something different. So their society
I don't think that's
changed.
true. I mean, maybe
it is true. No, Jeff,
Bill,
trust me. Jeff,
Bill,
trust me. That is true.
You end up with these like one-off folks.
But it's not one-off. That's an entire society, and that's true.
Celebrated transgender people.
No, accepted them as part of society. They were an accepted part of society. Yes, until the English settlers showed up.
I mean, I think that this is. I just don't think that's true.
Well, it is.
I mean, you say it is, but. Please send a link. I'd be happy to see what we can do with this.
Okay.
But what is often used is you end up with these like one-off little examples, like a clownfish or something to try to make the argument
it's an entire species.
that transgenderism in human beings is somehow should be acceptable, and it isn't exclusively connected to your biological sex.
But clownfish are an entire species. Same thing with
they're
the cuttlefish.
not human beings,
No,
Bill.
but the issue is, does it exist? Because you're talking about it being a lie, and it exists. It was created by God. I mean, if you look at it, go to hyenas.
Bill,
Go to hyenas.
I don't care.
You can't physically look at a hyena and tell if they're male or female, because both the males and the females have the dangly bits.
Human beings are different than animals.
But the issue is the creation, and if God created them this way, then why are we assuming it's a lie with humans?
Because
why do you assume
they're different?
But we have homosexuality. We have homosexuality in the animal community at exactly the same percentage we have in the human community.
I don't care. Bill,
well, God seemed to be consistent on that one.
I raise animals.
Why not here?
Because human beings are different than animals. All right, look.
But the consistency is the same.
No, it's
not.
not.
That's the thing. As far as creation,
Bill,
yes, it is.
Let me finish this. I raise goats. Goats will screw anything they possibly can, okay? Anything and everything they do. What is the mandate upon human beings when it comes to sexual activity? You do it within marriage. So use an example of a goat to say, well, goats just screw whatever they want, therefore human beings should just screw whatever they want. We are fundamentally different, created by God to be different. So I don't care if there's clownfish that are transgender. You are assigned a sex by God at the very beginning, and it should be, and it is immutable. It does not change.
Well, the sex, no, but the
And
gender,
it's direct,
sure.
no, and
Yeah.
there's no examples of gender being separate from sex. They're uniquely connected.
They have examples of it in the Egyptian societies as well, in the Hindu society. We can go through a series. And those aren't one-offs. Those are entire societies.
Absolutely one-offs.
No, they're not. There's entire societies.
How are they doing? How's the Hindu transgender society doing these days?
Well, it was squashed by the white Europeans, and now they're struggling to get back into normal.
Back
That's
into,
just
like,
history.
this is Marxist thought.
No, it's not. It is not Marxist thought. It is based on history. It's based on history. And here's the reason why. When we were looking at transgender and we're looking at this, you know what I did? I went and looked. I went and looked for it, just like when people were talking about whether or not you could choose to be homosexual or not. I went and looked. And right now we have more than 560 individual animal species that exhibit homosexual behavior on the exact same proportional percentages that it exists in the human population. It's consistent. And so why do we assume that transgender is not consistent?
And you have a Bible, you literally have a Bible that tells you human beings are created in the image of God.
Yes.
Different than animals. And you're like, well, because the animals all do it, we should do it.
No, not because they do it. I'm looking for consistency as far as God's creation and what his plan is. Because again, in theory, God doesn't necessarily have a sex either. So would it be that important?
How do you read the Bible and go that God doesn't have a sex? He's referred to Father and Him throughout the Bible, Bill.
Yeah, I know, but what sex is God? Does he have a sex? Does he have a gender? So he has the chromosomes? No, he's beyond our conception.
Jesus Christ walked this earth as God.
But that's
what do you think his
Jesus,
gender was?
That's because it was God made human. He was the human form of God. But he could have God could have made him God.
He's
Yes,
not just
I know.
the human form of God. He is God.
Here's the thing. I understand that he is, but he could have chosen female as well. He could have, because he's God. Because he's God. He's beyond the idea and the conceptions of sex. In fact, here's the weird part is, because he's referred to the entire Bible, and this is going to hurt a lot of people's brains this morning. I'm so sorry to do this at 7:27 in the morning, but he's referred to as him. So in the Bible, as Christians, we have accepted God's chosen pronoun. He doesn't have the twig and berries. He doesn't have testicles. He's beyond that.
Bill.
No, do you think God has testicles?
Jesus Christ was God. He is not
But that's a human
God.
form.
He is not just a human form of God.
He
is God himself. And he is male. And yes, could he have chosen, but he chose to be male.
He's
Bill.
the human form because of the Holy Trinity. The idea that God can exist as God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit all at once. That all three can exist at the same time. But when Jesus was here on earth, God wasn't not in heaven. He didn't have a sorry, come back later sign out in front of the office. So he
One
existed
God,
in
three persons.
Yes, he existed in two places at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in both cases, male.
How do you know that about God in heaven?
Because he refers to himself.
That's his chosen pronoun.
But Bill, he's not female.
That's his chosen pronoun. He doesn't necessarily have ovaries or testicles. He doesn't have either. He doesn't have the same DNA that we do. He doesn't have the same chromosomes because we are human form here. He is ethereal. He's much beyond what we are. He's so far beyond what we are. He does not have XX or XY chromosomes.
Yes, he does.
No,
but
he doesn't.
In Jesus, he is male.
No, but that's the representation of God on earth. God was in heaven and on earth at the same time. And to be here, his representation was human. And he represented himself as a male human, which, again, given the society at the time, if he wanted to deliver the message, male human is the only way to do it. He couldn't have done it as a female human at the time.
You're dismissing the identity of God as he has to communicate via the chosen male example of the time.
That's how the messages have to be delivered.
He is God the Father, God the Son. There's no
those
female there.
Those are his chosen pronouns. Yes, those are his chosen pronouns. Because he doesn't have a sex necessarily. He doesn't have testicles or ovaries. He doesn't have those.
I think that's heresy.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
I'm literally telling you, God the Father,
No.
God the Son,
Yes.
God the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And you're like, those are just chosen pronouns.
Yes, because...
No, they are core to his identity.
Yes.
Bill?
Yeah, just like someone can change their gender identity, they can be core to their identity as well.
Bill, you have no example in the Bible of God choosing to be female.
Hang on a sec. But what we don't have is we don't have any example of God having testicles or ovaries. And the idea, he is ethereal.
The entire New Testament,
no,
Bill.
He is ethereal. He is beyond that. He had to become man in person. And in order to do that, he had to take on the human characteristics. He is beyond that. We talk about the idea that hearing the voice of God would make your head explode. He is beyond who we are and what we are. He's not necessarily male or female. It's his chosen pronouns.
All right, phone lines are lighting up, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Again, phone lines 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. Going back to the original discussion, the UK Supreme Court ruling trans women can't be defined as women. Is biological sex critical to the definition of what a woman is, or can you just change your gender? Did a whole great documentary on it, Matt Walsh did, and I think this is exactly why progressives can't define this stuff, and they struggle through it all because they've tried to buy into something that doesn't actually exist, which is that you can separate your gender from your biological sex, and it's tied our laws into knots. It's created confusion. It's all based on a lie. But prove me wrong. 303-696-1971. Let's talk about Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis is the son of a police officer and a former seminarian that's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is also believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S Law.com. We'll continue with the phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. And this is why I get kicked out of religion class over and over and over and over.
All right, we're talking a UK Supreme Court decision ruling trans women can't be defined as women. In a law that was passed in 2010, the equality law that required that, a certain amount of spaces be set aside for women, for board positions need to be set aside for women, includes quota laws. That's an ancillary issue. But in this case, the UK saying, no, biological sex is connected to womanhood because you can't just have men that think that they're women, trans women, come in and take these places from women. There's actual impacts to that. And to me, this is a continued falling out of policy, philosophy, beliefs that are based upon a lie that you can change your gender.
Yeah,
your gender is connected to your sex.
You forgot that part of the court case where they did say that transgender individuals would also be protected under certain discrimination laws as well.
Yep.
So it didn't just totally invalidate it. So there are two parts to it. Yeah. So that transgender people can still be protected based on their gender, but that this law was determined based on sex, which is fair. That's fair. Yep.
And
That's
I
exactly
think
what I've
this
been
is a
saying for
perfect
months.
example of just how everything is confused because we can't even define what a woman is. So let's go to the phone lines. Ron Greeley. Good morning, Ron. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning, guys. Hey, I heard Billy talking about God and not saying he has testicles and stuff, right? Didn't Adam have testicles? And doesn't it say that God made man in his own image?
It says we made him in our image. And you have to, I think you have to create space.
Oh, wait a minute. Made him in our, it says in the Bible, God made man in his own image. It didn't say in our own image.
That's only in some. That's only in some translations. The NIV translation. Hang on a sec, sir. The NIV translation says mankind. That would encompass both men and women, and that's what the NIV version says.
What print?
What
year? Right, so it's not current.
So here's
No, hang on, sir.
Hold on.
I don't know what it published at, but I believe it's current.
Here's Genesis 1:26, New International Version. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness,
That's
so that
weird.
they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals."
So I was right, wasn't I, Ron? I was right about the translation.
What print
Thank
is
you.
that?
And then New American
Thank you so much.
Standard Bible, which I went to seminary, and NASB is typically the closest to the actual original text. They say, then God said, let us make mankind in our image and in our likeness. And so you have to account for the fact that...
well, that's weird because I'm looking at it and it says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. So God created mankind in his own image.
Yeah. But other versions of the Bible
Which
say
verse
different.
is that? Because that's just a different verse.
1:27.
Yeah.
So that's the next
every time
verse.
you could find one that says something, I could find one that says something.
But Jeff just pointed out that's the next verse, not the verse we're necessarily
Yeah, so
addressing.
so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. So you have to account that femalehood does reflect God's image.
Yeah. That's been the teaching of the church fairly consistently, too.
Oh, well, yeah. Man, I don't know. One thing that Billy's doing really good at is creating controversy. I noticed that he does a real good job of that.
But I think we're talking about different things here, Ron. So I want to bring some clarity to this because I think it's really important. Okay, God is God the Father. God is God the Son. Okay, those are male, right? And within the mystery of God, there's absolutely the idea that the image of God is found in female. But to say that God is somehow non-binary or God chooses to switch genders or to try to place the crazy and the lunacy of the transgender movement upon God right now and to try to shoehorn that in is just wrong. And that's why I think this is all built upon a lie, that somehow you can change your gender, that your gender isn't explicitly connected to your biological sex. It's why the left can't define what a woman is. It's why people will say a transgender woman, a man that believes he's a woman, is a woman. Is a woman. That is wrong. It is just fundamentally wrong.
Absolutely. And I think it was Trump that said something about, as far as for sports, that they had to go off of their birth certificate. And in California, they're now saying you can change your birth certificate, which means just go off of blood type then. Let's just make it simple. Just go off of the blood type. You can't change your blood type.
The National Olympic Committee tried that, and it didn't work out so well because there's more than just X, Y, and XX. There's several different other possible chromosome combinations. And so the blood test and those things. No, but the idea is that they're both male and female. You can have XYY, you can have XXY. There's several different combinations. And the International Olympic Committee tried to do that, and they couldn't, through their testing, verify sex to the level that you want it verified, because there is too much malleability in there. There are more choices than just 1 and 2. There are more choices out there. Right. And those are choices that were honestly created by God as well. That's the thing, is I'm not denying the existence of God nor his influence in this. That those are things that are created by God.
But we're dealing with definitions here.
Yeah,
okay?
I know.
And so what ends up happening, though, Bill, is you end up taking some exception to the definition to try to rebuff the entire definition. So if we say, for instance, and I've talked about this before, a human being has 2 arms, 2 legs, 10 toes, 10 fingers, and then someone's born with 9, you don't say, well, they're not a human being, or therefore we can't use the definition of 2 arms, 2 legs, 10 toes, 10 fingers as a definition for a human being.
Yeah, true.
So we're dealing with definitions, and then you try to take some exception to try to disprove that shouldn't be a definition in itself.
Well, the idea is, if it doesn't fall within the definition, does the definition necessarily work? And the definition defined by the law here that the court found was that this law was based on biological sex, but people that are transgender are also afforded the protections based on discrimination, but this is not one of them, because this law was determined based on sex. Just like the idea that I believe that if we said biological females are the only ones that can compete in female sports, to me, that is not discriminatory, because we have defined it based on biology. If we just say only men can participate in men's sports and only women can participate in women's sports, that to me leaves it up in the air to either biology or gender. And that's where I have confusion.
Then you're saying that there is a difference. You are saying there's a difference between a biological woman and a woman that a man that identifies as a woman, and we are going, yes, there is a difference.
Yes, and I've been consistent on that.
Sex is required for gender identity.
No, sex is not required for gender identity, but I'm consistent on it. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ron.
As I'm staring at this Genesis 1:27, and I'm not, and I'll tell you right now, I wasn't great at punctuations, writing, when to put in semicolon, colon, all that other stuff, but I know it has meaning. I remember that much. And the way I'm looking at this, there's meaning in the punctuations here. And when it says that God created man in his own image, in the image of God, he created him. Then boom. Then it has the semicolon, and then it says male and female, he created them. It's not like He created male and female in the image of him.
But other translations say that.
No, yeah,
that's how other translations represent it.
You can't say that women aren't created in the image of God.
No, but what I'm saying is that females are in what aspect? Do they breathe? They have a heartbeat? They heal the same, etc. They feelings, etc. But not in body parts. I don't feel that. Whether we can prove that, I think we have to come at some point.
Here's the thing, Ron.
To go on faith.
There's nothing though inside the Bible that there's nothing necessarily in the Bible that can draw us to that conclusion directly. And that's
in
why.
Your opinion.
No, based on the text that even the one that Jeff read, the two different versions talk about it being mankind and women are created in the image of God. And the thing for me is this is the thing where I think that you and Jeff and I all diverge upon is that if we were in heaven and we caught God in the shower, we have different opinions on what we would see in the naughty parts. We have totally different opinions on what we may see there. And that's kind of the idea.
I don't think there's opinions. I think you have the whole New Testament that says it's male. All right.
No, that would be Jesus. That'd be the dude that was here. Hey, thanks, Ron.
All right. We got a lot more to get to. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is how it goes. I kicked out of class so much for this. This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Man, the text messages are pouring in on this one. We're talking UK Supreme Court ruling trans women can't be defined as women. Let's go to Jacqueline in Nebraska. Good morning, Jacqueline. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, fellas. Yeah, I thought maybe a woman should call in.
There you go.
You know, I'll tell you, God gave, the Creator gave Eve to Adam to go out and be fruitful and multiply. Now, I'm telling you, there isn't a man on this planet you can dress up like Peter Rabbit for all I care. You can wear wigs, you can put on dresses, you can have your gonads cut off. But I'll tell you what, 16 hours of labor, you couldn't keep up with me. Now, to pretend that you're a man, to pretend that you're a man and you can be a woman, you don't walk in my shoes, because if you did, you would run like hell. Once a month, women have a hell of a time. They have a menstrual cycle that is natural for a woman. When you get 55, you stop that. You have swollen legs, you have varicose veins. Now, I dare any man, I don't care who or where they come from or what they want to be, to walk in my shoes. One day.
No, totally fair. That is completely and totally fair. Yeah, I agree with you that the idea of what a biological woman goes through can't be compared. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and it can't.
Why do you separate them out?
Because
I mean, no, I mean,
different.
everything that Jacqueline just said was exactly right. She is uniquely made a woman, entirely a woman, and no man can be a woman.
Biologically, no. Yeah, yeah. As far as
and you
gender,
can think it any way you want to. You can think you're Peter Rabbit, Billy, but that doesn't mean you're Peter Rabbit.
You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City, and you are listening to the only show having this debate. I can guarantee you we are discussing.
Nobody else has the stones.
Yeah, the UK Supreme Court ruling that trans women can't be defined as women, at least in a particular law. And I think the crux of the debate, I believe, comes down to the idea of the connection between human sexuality and gender, and the belief that those two can be separated. Let's go to Joel in Littleton. Good morning, Joel. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Morning, gentlemen. I don't understand why we're even worried about what the UK Supreme Court says. We don't, in the U.S., we don't live by their laws.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so the reason why is Western civilization is having this debate. It's having debates over gender, sexuality, marriage, all that stuff. And in part because Western civilization was shaped so much by Judeo-Christian thought. And traditional Judeo-Christian thought is that you are created male or female. Sexuality takes place within the confines of marriage, or should be within the confines of marriage, and you have a culture that's now rejecting that traditional Judeo-Christian thought, and from my perspective, it's creating a lot of confusion. And Western civilization is connected, Canada, America, Europe, all influenced by Western civilization, so it's all part of the debate.
So is that... To me, it sounds like we're trying to fall into one world order.
Well, yeah, I understand where you're going with that, Joel, but I think for what Jeff and I are using that court case for is more on another level, is we're trying to use it as the intellectual exercise, that we have a court system that is somewhat similar to what we have in the U.S., and it made this ruling. And so we just wanted to take the conversation to the next level, not saying that this is what's going to happen in the U.S., but the intellectual exercise of what if? What about if this is here? What does it do to the larger conversation about sex, gender, rights, discrimination? So we were just using this as a jumping off point, not saying that we have to do it here, but just using it to get into the intellectual exercise so that we can discuss these larger issues that most shows won't do.
We inherit a lot of our legal precedent, black law, all that stuff from the English tradition.
And the other part is that a lot of shows are afraid to do conversations on this level. A lot of them will do a very base surface level, but they're not willing to dive into conversations like we had. How many times are you going to hear a conversation where someone like my pal Jeff dives deep into the interpretation of the Bible and how it's written based on his experience going to theology school? You're not going to get that a lot of other places. So that's just why we're using it.
Okay. I understand that and respect that. It's just, I appreciate it. And I guess I agree more with Jeff than I do you, Bill. But
I'm sure you do. That's okay.
That I know a lot of people do, but I'm being honest about it.
Dude, I get it, man. And the thing is, if we had, I mean, just between you and me, Joel, if we had a bunch of people that called in every morning and everyone was agreeing with me and was saying that Jeff is wrong, I would be deeply, deeply, deeply concerned about what the hell has happened to the show and what has happened to Colorado, because I understand that I am out on my own island on so many things, and that's why I try not to be dogmatic about this stuff, but we enjoy the conversation, the intellectual nature of it.
But I do like hearing both sides of it.
Oh,
I appreciate that. Joel,
Thank
great
you.
call
Appreciate
from
the call.
Littleton. Joel's line will be open 303-696-1971. What do you want to do, Bill? We got almost jam-packed full lines. We got news coming up. We got. Let's do one more.
Okay, yeah, let's do one more. I agree with that. I'm glad
Jeff
you said
and
I didn't.
Golden. Let's go to Jeff. Good morning, Jeff.
Yeah, morning.
Yeah, good morning, guys. So yeah, I guess I'm just kind of from the. I've heard Billy say that it's the gender is this social construct, and I guess I kind of equated it. I look at it as I've worked in construction, and so let's look at it that way. And a transgender is kind of a construction project, in my opinion. And until you're done with that construction project, and that means, removal of parts, and then and they do that. Then after that, but the thing is, it's very expensive. So typically, most transgenders aren't done with the construction project.
Yeah.
So where do you fall do you think if you haven't completed the construction project of a house, you can't call it a house? So if you haven't finished the construction of a transgender, how can you be, you know what I mean? I'm okay with it. Once you've completed it and you've spent your $100,000 of hard-earned money, okay, and then you want to be a woman, I'm all in. There you go. But unfortunately, there's not very many people that can afford it. Not too many people actually walk around, usually vast majority the other way. Half done.
Yeah, but do we also then, again, I'm trying to deal with the idea of the construction analogy, because there's part of it that then the idea being that, I mean, we could talk about right now, home ownership is out of reach for many people that are in the middle class and lower classes. And so the idea of you may be a transgender person, but unless you fall into this economic category, you can't qualify. And I have a little bit of an issue of that, saying that your rights are determinant upon your income. That's where I have a little bit of an issue with that. Like telling someone you can't be Hispanic. That's a bad example. I'm sorry about that. That's a bad example. But the idea, because
I mean, so there's an old philosophical exercise. I was a philosophy major.
Yeah.
How many parts of a ship can you remove?
Yeah.
And add new parts to it before it becomes a new ship?
Yeah. Exactly.
Is it 51%? At 51%, it is now a new ship, or was the ship? And it gets into identity, and it gets into core function, and it gets into environment, and all that stuff. And we're dealing with definitions, because it is the key word is a man who believes he's a woman. Is he a woman? No. Because it's more than just identifying. There are core biological aspects to this, and the greatest example for me that this is that it just creates so much confusion about whether or not these guys can compete with women's sports, whether or not they can take women's board spots, all that stuff, and so is the key word here. I sound like Bill Clinton.
Yes, you do. But that chip example is a great one. And maybe, have your opinion on this one, Jeff. But you can use that chip for other purposes. Even though the ship was built and designed for X, we can still use it for Y and call it that Y kind of ship. We still can do that. We can repurpose and use the ship in a different way than was intended when it was built. And that would be acceptable. And for me, that is the difference between the biological sex or the building of the ship and then the gender or the use of the ship at that time. I know it's an inelegant analogy, but I'm just trying to give a little bit more light as far as where I'm coming from. But I get it. I understand why so many people disagree with me. And that's
Jeff,
okay.
Great call. Sure appreciate it.
Yeah,
We got to get
Jeff.
to news with Blake Olson. Now it's time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, 53 and sunny in Denver. It's going to be a beautiful day today, expecting a high of 74. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, Colorado House Republicans pushing back against the state's newly signed gun law. Minority Leader Rose Puglisi, a friend of the show, announced yesterday that the State House Republicans sent a letter to U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi asking the U.S. Department of Justice to review the constitutionality of Senate Bill 3.
It is signed on by every member of our caucus, which I think shows a unified front in protecting the citizens of Colorado.
Governor Polis signed the new law last Thursday. It will soon require people seeking a certain type of semi-automatic firearm to obtain a permit and go through plenty of hoops and jump plenty of hurdles to obtain it. DJT up early this morning again and says congrats to the government leaders in Texas for finally passing school choice, which he strongly endorsed. DJT says that this is a gigantic victory for everyone in Texas, and soon education will be sent back to all states where it belongs. 47 says it's their goal to bring education in the U.S. to its highest level, one that it has never attained before. 47 wants the IRS to revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status after the school said it wouldn't cave. The request comes after DJT revoked federal funding from Harvard. On Wednesday, sleazy Joe Biden visited Harvard, sniffed some hair, and then applauded their decision to defy Trump. Scott Jennings on CNN.
I think as a political matter, if you went out and argued that to the American people right now and said, well, we're just not going to make it as a country unless we give $9 billion to Harvard that's sitting on $53 billion, you'd get your ass kicked, I imagine, in a political campaign. Now, don't misunderstand. I wish Harvard would actually work something out here. I do agree that these universities are important. They do important work. But I don't agree that we need to continue to fund people who won't listen to us when we say, you have problems. I would argue that it's a national security problem that these Ivy League colleges are turning out people who fundamentally hate Western civilization.
Agree. Far fewer Americans than expected filed first-time claims for unemployment benefits last week. The Labor Department reports receiving 215,000 initial requests in the week ending April 12th. That's a decrease of about 9,000 from the prior week's revised total. A flight from Utah to Texas was diverted to the Springs after a service dog bit a passenger. The incident happened on Wednesday afternoon aboard an American's Airlines flight from Provo to Dallas. One person was taken to a local hospital in the Springs, but officials haven't released details about the severity of the bite. And that emergency landing at DIA last weekend may have been caused by a rabbit. It caused an engine fire, so the plane turned around and landed in Denver after heading to Edmonton. Air traffic recordings also indicate the pilot believed that the rabbit got sucked into the engine while it was preparing for takeoff. No one was hurt. A jury has found
Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny had a rough day that day.
Yeah, you silly rabbit. No doubt. Well, that isn't Bugs Bunny. That's the Trix rabbit. A jury has found UCCS shooter Nicholas Jordan guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. Race Montgomery, the father of Celie Montgomery, who was one of the victims, shared a written statement in front of the court before sentencing.
One of the hardest moments for me was when all of us had to listen how Celie's life was possibly taken in a series of unfortunate events, like she was collateral damage.
Jordan was accused of shooting Celie and Samuel Knopp in a dorm room 14 months ago at UCCS. Both succumbed to their injuries. Jordan was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And finally here, just because you have a ton of cash and then you sit in a rocket and you take a ride, an exciting ride, thrilling ride, and sometimes could be dangerous, doesn't make you amazing. The narcissist Gayle King would disagree.
Please don't call it a ride. That is not a friggin' ride. Whenever a man goes up, you have never said to an astronaut, boy, what a ride. You know, we duplicated the same trajectory that Alan Shepard did back in the day, pretty much. No one called that a ride. It was called a flight. It was called a journey, because a ride implies that it's something frivolous or something that's lighthearted. There was nothing frivolous about what we did. No. And the machine that we were on, and what it took for the people to get that machine up and running, to get us up and get us back down safely. So, you know, I'm very disappointed and very saddened by it. And I also say this, what it's doing to inspire other women and young girls, please don't ignore that. I've had so many women and young girls reach out to me, and men too, by the way, men too, that say, wow, I never thought I could do that, but I see you doing it at this stage of my life. Who would have thunk it? Not me. And how inspired they are.
You're freaking saddened by it? Saddened by what? Really? You sat in a rocket, took a ride? That's what it was, a ride?
They make everything political.
God.
Just everything. You didn't use the right word. You didn't use the right word. Then, you know, she's going to complain about definitions, and then when you ask them what a woman is, they can't answer that.
And when you grew up, did your parents say, hey, make sure if you do something amazing, make sure you tell the world how great you are? and how
then
amazing
get
you
angry
are.
at everybody that asks you the questions about it.
Right, exactly. I agree. It could have, it could have exploded, and they all could have died, no doubt. But when you fly a jet, same thing, or a plane. But just amazing, man. Heroes don't tell people how heroic they are. Unbelievable. Gosh, it drives me nuts. They all drive me nuts. The Dodgers hold off the Rockies 8-7. And we have NBA playoffs coming up this weekend in lower downtown Denver. The Clippers are in town to take on the Nuggets. And in hockey, Avalanche Stars, they start their series, the opening round, Stanley Cup finals on Saturday. 50 in Brighton, 49 in Parker, 53 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
They're like a boa constrictor. They're like a python.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The spring weather we've been enjoying is going to come to a crashing end with a strong cold front. Temperatures today will reach the upper 60s and lower 70s, but it will get a lot colder by late this afternoon and evening. And later today, there will be scattered rain showers and thunderstorms developing. Rain and snow turning to wet snow tonight. Could see an inch or two on the grassy areas by morning. Lows upper 20s. Much colder Friday. Highs only 30s. Lingering snow Friday night. Lows 20s. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. This is News Talk 710 KNUS, just like the big voice said. And I want to talk to you about Wound Care Associates of Colorado. This is a company that is changing the game right here in our state. How? Because they want to help heal your chronic wound, that diabetic ulcer, that pressure sore, that slow healing cut. I know. I said heal the cut, and you're like, doesn't everybody do that? No, they don't. I've experienced with this directly in my life. Here's the deal. With Wound Care Associates of Colorado, they promote maximized healing outcomes, faster healing. They want to make sure that tissue and skin heals so the dirt, germs, and bacteria can't get access to your body. Most wound treatment facilities want to maintain the wound, which means leave it open and clean it every so often. 1, keeps you as a constant customer. 2, exposes your body and your internal organs to potential infection. That's exactly what happened in my family. My aunt had a slow healing wound on her leg. She got MRSA during the maintenance procedures. It led to numerous bouts in and out of the hospital, sometimes days, sometimes weeks, even months, and some amputations. I would have done anything to not have her go through that. If only Wound Care Associates of Colorado was around then. I'll tell you about what they're doing in my own life here in a second. But here's what you got to do. Reach out to coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com, to talk to Wound Care Associates of Colorado, because their certified nurse practitioner, wound certified nurse practitioner, comes to your home. The private comfort and convenience of your home is where you receive the treatment, and they set up a treatment plan specifically for you to maximize the healing outcomes. Yes, no worrying about getting to the doctor's office, no worry about transportation if it's a family member or something like that in a retirement community. They come to where you or your loved one is, and they're going to promote faster healing. I made that choice because of what I saw in my life with my aunt when my youngest had a recent surgery and the wound was not healing. As soon as the doctor mentioned, we'll maintain that. No, we won't, doc. No. I saw how this can go sideways. When we walked out of that office, I went to coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com, and contacted the Wound Care Associates of Colorado to deal with this issue with my daughter. It's doing great right now. In just about 2 weeks, she has had phenomenal healing because of the program they put her on. It's different than anything else I've ever seen before. If you or someone in your life is dealing with this kind of slow healing cut, a chronic wound, a diabetic ulcer, don't mess around. Wound Care Associates of Colorado, Wound Care Associates of Colorado. They're the best in the business here in the state, doing it right now. coloradowound.com. Contact them at coloradowound.com, and when you do, tell me you heard about them here on the Jeff and Bill Show. Back to you, Jeff.
That's great to hear, Bill. All right, we always love to preview what Pete's going to be talking about this Saturday. Peter Boyles joins us now. Pete, my dad was on the show yesterday, and we were talking about you. It's not too often that you have a guy that multiple generations get to work with, and we were all joking. You'll probably be working with my kids, and we'll all be gone. You're kind of you're like an Old Testament figure. You're going to be around for a few hundred years.
Yeah, Ezekiel and me. You know what? Just to add on what you guys are talking about. How about those form-fitting bell-bottom spacesuits?
Oh yeah, that
with the matching black boots.
And have the fashion on point, otherwise can't go to space. Yes.
I said, comparing the trip that Alan Shepard took.
Yes. Yeah. It looks like he's in a snowsuit, Alan Shepard is, and they're all like, suits designed by Louis Vuitton.
How's my butler?
Exactly. The original things, this is going to get me in trouble. There were Abel and Baker were the chimps that went up first. And they just rode. And remember, there was a big argument between the rocket scientists, the paperclip Germans, and the American pilots. And were they actually pilots? Were they actually, astronauts? And they won out. They won. Shepard and Sherrard and all those magnificent men. They won out. But I cracked up. I'm like you guys, and I'm going, come on, matching skin-tight, bell-bottom spacesuits.
Oh, yeah. And on a side note, how mad, and I saw this meme online, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but how mad are those astronauts that spent 9 months in space going to be at Katy Perry when she's up in the space for 10 minutes and comes down and kisses the ground? How pissed off. I think someone should hold Katy Perry so those astronauts can just hit her once. Just once. Right. I'm not going to go excessive, but just once.
It was a birthday present, wasn't it? It was Bezos' birthday present.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, boy. Anyhow.
I got the wrong crowd. My friends don't give me that for birthdays.
This Saturday, the Oklahoma City bombing, the domestic terrorist truck bombing of the Murrah office federal building, it's 30 years, April 19th, 1995. And we're going to open it with a guy by the name of Mike Connors. He's done this documentary film. Fellas, I'm telling you, the questions that are still laying out there. And then, of course, our very own Stephen Tubbs, who was assigned there, he covered it. And then we'll follow that up with Kevin Flynn. And Kevin Flynn, of course, traced McVeigh's footprints, his footsteps, rather, and always came up with, look, this isn't straight. These answers are not legit. And then finally, longtime friend, and I think some of you guys may know, Nathan Chambers. And Nathan was court assigned. Judge Mage called Nathan, and court assigned him to take McVeigh to his death. And he went. They built a death house in Terre Haute, Indiana, and McVeigh was taken there. And I have a funny story where he and I are very good friends, and we were having lunch together, and he had this big, strange telephone, and he put it on the table. And I said, Nathan, what is that? He said, that only rings one way. And I said, well, where does it ring? He said, it rings in the death house in McVeigh's cell in Terre Haute, Indiana. And I said, can you call it? I said, can you call it? And he said, yes. I said, let's call him.
Yeah. Let's call him and ask if his refrigerator's running.
See if he'll do the show. Yeah. And anyhow, so he took him to his death. So it has been a story. We're talking about this book, Chaos. It's been a story of so many stories that have never, so many questions, that's a better way to say it, that have never been answered.
Yeah.
There's nobody better than Kevin Flynn, and this guy, Mike Connors, out of the box, he'll set the stage. He's unbelievable.
Coming up on 30-year anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing, Peter Boyles joins us previewing his show, which will be actually right around the anniversary, be the day before, right?
Yeah.
And Pete, I was watching a documentary about interviewing McVeigh's attorneys, and one attorney said, "Oh yeah, he did it himself, along with Terry Nichols." Another attorney said, "There's a lot of questions we never got answered. There was maybe possibly another guy, an arm that was found that they couldn't attribute to anybody, or a leg."
It was as a leg.
Yeah.
Remember John Doe 2, John Doe 3? When we get into Kevin Flynn, and actually this guy we're coming out of the box with, Mike Connors, is from the New York Times. He's done a film, and it's baffling, and the reasons that they think that it was done. McVeigh is, and then of course you got to go to talk about Waco. You have to talk about Ruby Ridge. You have to talk about, all these different things. But McVeigh, and then there's James Nichols and Terry Nichols, and Terry's alive. Terry's on Bombers Row. James, I don't know where James Nichols is, but of course McVeigh's dead, and he takes all of those secrets to the grave. So it's going to be, I think, a very powerful show. I think the unanswered questions, the involvement of the American government. Here we go again, right? So nothing shocks me, I think, anymore when we start talking about, people call it the deep state or the secret government or the shadow government. These guys were involved. I'm convinced of it. So.
Oh, it's going to be a fascinating show. 9 to 1 this Saturday. Tune in to Pete Boyles here at 710 KNUS as they reflect on the 30th anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing, the trial that took place here in Denver, Colorado. We were all very close to it. And Pete, looking forward to that show.
Yeah, I'm putting some work into this one. So, but thanks, you guys. Thanks a lot. Be safe.
This will be so interesting. Yeah, check out Pete's 9 to noon on the weekend, on Saturday. That's going to be an amazing show. That's going to be incredible.
Yeah, thank you, Peter Boyles. All right, want to talk to you about our friends over at the Colorado Farm Bureau. Do you know where your last meal came from? Sure, it was a restaurant or made at home with food from the grocery store, but where did it come from before that? Chances are it came from a family farm or ranch right here in Colorado. Let's talk Colorado agriculture. It's an industry that I'm passionate about and has been a part of Colorado from before we even became a state. From family ranches on the Eastern Plains to local peach farms in the orchards of Palisades, they provide a wholesome and sustainable food production and contribute billions to our economy. And my friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau work hard to represent our agriculture industry. Farm Bureau members have been coming together for 104 years to protect agriculture and help it grow and prosper. You can join them and help continue this legacy. Join and help support family farms and ranches at coloradofarmbureau.com. That's coloradofarmbureau.com. All right, want to get to this story, Bill, and then we'll get to some calls.
Yeah.
Report that came out from Common Sense Institute. Colorado's divergent trends among public and private employment. This is probably one of the most important studies I've seen in a long time, Bill.
Yeah, this was interesting. Looking at some of the numbers.
This is wild.
Yeah, it really is.
So basically, we're losing our private sector jobs, okay? But we're increasing our public sector jobs. Listen to this. Colorado added just 500 total non-farm jobs between February 2024 and February of 2025, the sixth lowest total among all states. However, a deeper trend emerges when examining changes in the state's public-private employment levels over this time. While Colorado ranked poorly against the nation when comparing total non-farm job growth, its public and private sector rankings diverged completely. The state's public sector grew 3.15%, the second highest rate in the country, yet private sector employment fell by 0.6%, the second largest decrease in the country. So what are they saying here? We're basically shifting the entire employment operation of the state. We are losing our private jobs and gaining our public sector jobs. And this would go right in line with the spending that's coming from this state. So we're literally becoming a socialistic state. Our jobs are government-based jobs. We'll get into this and more. We'll give you more details, but this is a fascinating study on a shift that's happening in this state right now.
Yeah. And can I throw something else on the table here when we're talking about it? And this is shocking, and I really appreciate the Common Sense Institute doing all the really, really, really super hard math, is remember, we are under a significant budget deficit here in Colorado. If the job growth has been in the public sector, the job cuts based on the budget will also be in the public sector. So the idea of employment going backwards in Colorado just based on these numbers in the next couple of years is a significant likelihood. These seem to be artificial numbers that are boosting how well our private sector is growing when actually it's the public. And the public's going to face some culling. So what's going to happen?
If your paycheck's coming from the government,
yep.
And, what does this mean for Tabor? What does this mean for the future of our state? Are we a free market, free industry, lots of job opportunities? Or are you going to have to go down to the Politburo and ask for a job? Because that's the way it seems to go.
Reference.
All right, we've got
good.
more. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It was about this time yesterday that I thought I might get in a food fight.
Yes. It's okay. I went back and I watched the video a little bit, and Jeff's face a couple of times like, uh-oh. Like, are they going to start throwing things at each other?
Literally in the between. And someone texted in, Jeff, you've got to grab some popcorn.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Absolutely. That would have been one that Adam, who does video for us, he and I have joked that you and I both need those props like Jon Stewart uses on The Daily Show, where he just pulls the popcorn up and starts eating it just to watch. Just when, like, you get into a conversation with someone or I get into a conversation that Jeff they can cut to the camera and Jeff's just eating the popcorn watching. That was it yesterday. Yeah, I got, Rich White and I got a little sideways on some subjects yesterday, and things got really heated. But the nice thing is...
And mics were being shut off.
Yes,
and all
they
that
were.
stuff.
Yes, they were. It got really heated, and even off air, it was heated. And Rich was nice enough to hang around until afterwards, and he and I hung out and talked for a while. And we are cool. Everything's all papered over. I understand where he's coming from. He understands where I'm coming from. I understand why he gets emotional. He understands why I got emotional on it. We understood where we were. But the bottom line is that things are copacetic, that he and I are absolutely cool. If he walked in the radio station today, we'd hug. It is that we are just completely and totally fine. Even though what you heard on the air were two people contentiously going at it and there were some emotions involved, we are adult enough to come together afterwards, explain things, and come together. So absolutely. In fact, Rich and I were talking after the show about a charity event he has coming up in May, and I would love for our show to be involved with that. I think it's a fantastic thing that he's doing. So yeah, yesterday we had fireworks. And Rich and I, we didn't hug it out. We at least hand shook it out at the tail end. We said next time we're in public and there's any sort of argument or disagreement, instead of arguing like that, we're going to have a dance fight.
Well, and let this be a message out to the entire city.
Yes.
Bill and I will do a show anywhere you want to feed us.
Anywhere, yes. You show up with the food, we are there. And if you want to, we'll argue with people. Because that's mostly me, though.
We had a great turnout. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. So
fun.
I think IHOP made a lot of money yesterday, which was just great.
Yeah, Bobby, the manager, the regional operations manager was so really happy. It was
you know where you could go this Easter looking for great food? Let me tell you about our friends over at the Black Eyed Pea of Colorado, locally owned and operated by Steve and Michelle. I love this restaurant with 8 locations. There's sure to be one near you. When's the last time you took the family to eat at the Black Eyed Pea? This Sunday's Easter. What are your plans? Make sure it includes the Easter celebration at the Black Eyed Pea. They'll be serving glazed ham dinner, a brown sugar-glazed ham steak served with 2 sides. Or maybe you'd like the roasted turkey dinner, hand-carved turkey served with stuffing and turkey gravy. It comes with 2 sides as well. Maybe you'd like both, roasted turkey and glazed ham. That's an option too. Or there's a hand-carved prime rib, 12 ounces, slow-cooked prime rib with 2 sides. Be sure to save room for their fresh-baked cobbler served with ice cream. It's the Easter celebration on April 20th at the Black Eyed Pea. Look, it's a big requirement on family and to make all that food. If you're looking for something a lot easier, including catered options or just drive by and pick up, Black Eyed Pea is the best for you. I love everything about this restaurant. I know you will as well. Let them do the cooking for you and keep it in Colorado. Visit the Black Eyed Pea near you.
Yeah, like Jeff. How many in our audience are super excited they're going to have to make Easter dinner? How many of them are like, oh my God, I get to spend how much time in the kitchen? Oh, the joy.
And, and this time of year with the kids and every activity.
I know. And
also, I didn't get back from a track meet till 8:30 last night.
Oh, my Lord. And the thing for me about doing the big celebrations and the family coming over and stuff, if that's your gig and you're responsible for that, it's the dishes afterwards.
Yeah.
It's not always
and
sometimes.
It's typically the nice china that you got to hand wash.
Exactly. So here's the thing. You go and see our friends at Black Eyed Pea. Not only does everybody get what they want, maybe you have someone in your family that isn't a huge fan of ham, maybe they want more of the turkey, they want something else, they want more of the sides. You can get all of that, but you don't have to have the stress of preparing it beforehand. Black Eyed Pea does all the cooking, plus they do all the dishes afterwards. So they will wait on you instead of you waiting on your family. Grab the family, take them on over. The food is top-notch. They do it differently than so many people. It is fantastic. And so, yeah, you're looking for something Easter that is stress-free. That's what I want to highlight. Stress-free. Make a reservation. Go see Black Eyed Pea. Bring the family there. You won't regret it.
Absolutely. Now, Colorado's experiencing really stagnant private sector job growth.
Yes, I was surprised.
Net 500 jobs added last year alone. Just 500.
Repeat that. 1 year, how many jobs, sir?
Net 500.
Net 500. in a year.
Yep.
365 days, and we counted to 500. That sucks.
Yeah, so it's a stagnation that is stemming from instability between the public and private sectors. Listen to this, okay? Private sector employment declined by 14,700 jobs last year. Private sector employment declined by 14,700 jobs, while the public sector expanded by 15,200 jobs. We lost 14,000 private sector jobs, gained 15,200 public sector jobs. Guys, this is like an economic earthquake. I'm going to say a seismic shift, but an earthquake in how Colorado employs people. I mean, my goodness, it's all government stuff. And we've got a $43 billion budget in the state. It's the highest budget it's ever been, but it's not enough. They're already cutting. They're missing it by $1.2 billion this year. And, I mean, this is a Colorado that is shifting right before our eyes as to who it employs. To me, this is like a gut punch in regards to the direction of the state, that it's not businesses, it's not entrepreneurship, it's not the energy industry, it is government jobs.
Now, the one thing on this, it is shocking that it's the discrepancy between the two. That, and I really appreciate the Common Sense Institute for doing all the hard math, because I can't do math. And so it really helps. And some of the question I have, and I'm going to have to dive into this a little bit deeper, is where those public sector jobs are. Because I would say, now this is hypothetical. I have nothing. I'm talking out of not the part where the voice comes out of, the other orifice, lower down below the equator in my body. That's where I'm talking out of. This one, I have nothing. I'm being completely and totally hypothetical on this one. But if a good portion of those 15,200 public jobs were things like classroom teachers, not administrators, but classroom teachers. If they were police officers, if they were construction workers that were repairing potholes and bridges and things like that, I could go, okay, I can see a decent investment on that. However, given the recent history of our state, I'm worried that those people that were hired, and among the 15,200 in the public sector, are things like the Homeless Transition Administration Authority type jobs.
Exactly.
That's what I'm worried about.
Exactly what it is.
And that's where I've seen a lot of the growth, and that's what worries me, because in many ways those aren't jobs that I feel will directly impact the lives of Colorado taxpayers.
Well, and if it wasn't for the drop in private sector employment, we lost 14,700 jobs. And I misspoke, because the 500 net job growth is not in public sector or private sector. That's total.
Yeah, that's total. Yeah.
Total.
That is crazy. So think about the idea.
We lost 14,700 private sector jobs.
Think about over the course of 12 months in Colorado, we have, based on jobs that disappear and jobs that have been created, a total over the course of a calendar year, 500 new jobs in total. That does not allow for economic growth. It doesn't allow for your personal growth based on your career or your family. It sure as hell isn't helping our housing situation. And that's part of it, as well as I think part of what I look at as the private sector, some of that decrease is the expense of living here in Colorado.
Yeah.
Some of that political expense, but some of that, most importantly, is financial expense. How expensive it is to travel, how expensive it is to have a house or rent, and both of them come with their own problems. One, trying to afford rent, two, because rent's always increasing, and then also, how do you ever save enough to find the mortgage? How do you raise a family? How do you pay for child care? And then one of the draws to our state always has been the playtime in the mountains. But you try to go up and down I-70, we've been hearing promises for more than a decade about fixing the traffic problems on I-70, and it still sucks. So people that may have moved here to enjoy going up to the mountains over the course of a ski season, spend a couple of Sundays being stuck on I-70 coming home going, I'll go find another state that I can get to and from the mountains easier. I'll go find another state where I can do this that is cheaper for my family. I can find another state where I can afford a house. We have, family, friends, members. In fact, George Brockler, previous host of the show, had his brother move to a completely different state because based on their financial situation, they weren't by no means poor. They weren't rich, but they were solid middle class, but they would never be able to afford a house. So they moved. Those are some of those jobs that left our state.
Jared Polis yesterday saying, I'm concerned about Donald Trump's tariffs and what they could do to shutter businesses and destroy good-paying jobs for hardworking Coloradans. Mr. Governor, if you're concerned about destroying good-paying jobs, perhaps you should look in the mirror, because I think the problems are coming more from you than they are from President Trump. All right, we'll get to this and more. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking a Common Sense Institute report, Colorado's divergent trends among public and private employment. This may sound nerdy and wonky, but I actually think it's a big indicator of the collapse of the free market, of entrepreneurialism, of business opportunities here in Colorado, as our state lost 14,000 private sector jobs while gaining 15,000 public sector jobs. We are relying on the government more and more as a state. I don't think that's sustainable.
No, you can't have job growth solely in the public sector. And the problem being is, one, obviously the one that is the most prevalent right now is the budget deficit, is that they have to trim, and that will cost jobs. So when you are dependent upon the public sector for your job growth, this is a problem, and this leads to deficit spending. The other thing is obviously what follows, that if public sector is the only way you are growing jobs, then it's almost an inherent problem that you have to increase the public sector every year. Otherwise, you have negative job growth. There's an incentive to create public sector jobs that aren't necessarily deemed worthy or necessary. You're putting the cart before the horse. You're not finding a need and then filling it. You're going to fill and then find the need. And that's the problem with large public sector employment and growth on this level when private sector growth is going the other direction. And again, 500 total jobs created in Colorado over the course of 365 days. Right. That's crap. That's awful. And you want to know why your rent is so high? There it is. There are fewer people competing for your rent, fewer people that have the ability to pay for that rent. And so that's part of why the things keep going up. And there's going to be fewer people out there that are going to be able to afford mortgages and houses, and it's going to be awful.
Well, I mean, public sector jobs rely upon the tax base that comes from private sector jobs. It's like the city of Denver. Half of its revenue comes from sales tax. Half of its revenue. And sales tax is only generated when people buy things in your city.
Yeah.
So if they're not buying stuff, if you don't have a robust private sector, I mean, I still would be concerned about the growth of government under this, but I wouldn't be as concerned as I am right now going, we lost 14,000 private sector jobs last year in Colorado, adding to the public sector 15,000 jobs. This entire state, the demographics are shifting. The type of people moving here, the type of people starting businesses, living here, it's all becoming so government dependent. And you see it in our budget, a record $43.9 billion budget, and they still can't pay for everything they want. They're in the hole by $1.2 billion. So, not good news. We'll continue to track that coming from the Common Sense Institute. Now, up next, Gary Barf. You might remember him from CPAC. He and Billy went back and forth. Well, he wants another ride on that Bronco. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader. We are 710 KNUS.
It's 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, April 17th, 2025. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. In just a second, we're going to talk with Gary Barv. Gary's running for president in 2028. He and Billy had a fun interaction that went kind of viral at CPAC, and then everybody else wanted to come by my show to talk to Bill.
Yes.
Bill's become this little bit of like a bull in the rodeo circuit that everybody has heard rumors of and wants to take a shot riding.
I think Gary wrote my name on the bathroom wall or something there.
For a good time.
For good debates. Go see. Yeah, I think that's what happens.
So he's back and going to join us here in just a second. Now, after this show, later this afternoon, I'm going to go down to a rally at the Colorado State Capitol. This is a good one. This is against this, quote, transgender legal protection bill, HB 1312. Starts at 1:30 outside on the west steps of the Capitol. And you're going to have lots of pastors there, religious leaders, political leaders, lots of folks speaking out against this bill that could criminalize this statement: Breonna Tattone is a man. Breonna Tattone is a transgender person in the state capitol. And for me, because he believes she's a woman, or he's a woman, he believes he's a woman, for me to simply state that Breonna Tattone is a man would be misgendering him and could bring me before the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. So there's a lot of free speech issues, including Alliance Defending Freedom, looking at all this. So rally down at the Colorado State Capitol. Prayer begins at 1 p.m., press conference 2:30, all that. So get down there around 1 o'clock down there at the Colorado State Capitol to fight against House Bill 1312 for our future, for our kids and for our future. And very important rally down there. All right, we'll get to Gary here in just a second, but now it's time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Happy Thursday, 53 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 74 today. It's going to be gorgeous. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. We have a little snow coming up tomorrow. Big deal. It's spring. Our top story update on the Maryland man, the poor Maryland man. In 2022, MS-13 terrorist Kilmore Obrego Garcia, the Maryland man, was stopped in Tennessee with 7 passengers. 7 driving without a license from Texas to Maryland. Authorities, he was on the terror watch list. The officer suspected human trafficking, and this was only one of his run-ins with authorities. Corrupt Joe Biden's FBI told the police to release him and release them. Now he's in the El Salvadoran prison in his home country, where he should be, and Senator Van Hollen flew down there to save him.
I'm here at the airport. I'm about to board my flight for San Salvador. The goal of this mission is to let the Trump administration, to let the government of El Salvador know that we are going to keep fighting.
Yeah. That didn't work out too well. They wouldn't meet with him, but he's going to keep on trying. DJT on Truth Social this morning calls for Fed Chair Jerome Powell to be fired. He says that Powell is too late on lowering interest rates. He says that Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. He says it's a complete mess. Oil prices are down, groceries are down, even eggs, and the U.S. is getting rich on tariffs. Far fewer Americans than expected filed first-time claims for unemployment benefits last week. The Labor Department reports receiving 215,000 initial requests in the week ending April 12th. That's a decrease of about 9,000 from the prior week's revised total. Big news, Gary Shapley, the IRS whistleblower who exposed the DOJ's cover-up of the criminal investigation of Hunter Biden, is now acting IRS commissioner. We need transformation in the IRS. Colorado House Republicans are pushing back against the state's newly signed gun law. Minority Leader Rose Puglisi announced on Wednesday that the State House Republicans sent a letter to U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi asking the U.S. Department of Justice to review the constitutionality of Senate Bill 3.
It is signed on by every member of our caucus, which I think shows a unified front in protecting the citizens of Colorado.
Governor Polis signed the new law last Thursday. It'll soon require people seeking to own a certain type of semi-automatic firearm to obtain a permit or complete a certified training course. House Republicans are saying that it infringes upon the Second Amendment. Rocky Mountain Gun Owners is also siding with the DOJ review request. Riley Gaines continues to fight the commies on the left. Do not quit. That's her motto. Doesn't matter what happens. And the left does not quit. They are just as ridiculous as they were a year ago, 6 months ago, 3 months ago. They still think that bats and balls should be allowed in women's locker rooms and women's sports. Her NCAA swimming title was ripped off from her by a man, and I think DJT should have a special celebration or special celebrations for every woman or girl who finished second to a cross-dresser.
I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that we have to be here, that we as women have to stand before you all on national television demanding equal opportunities, demanding privacy in areas of undressing, demanding safety in our sports. Amazing to me that we are still here fighting this fight, that the Democratic Party has really doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down on their ridiculous stance, but that's exactly what they've done.
So true, so true. Here's something crazy. Now, I don't mind half of this. CU is going to retire Travis Hunter's number 12 jersey this weekend at the spring game. And also number 2, Shedeur Sanders' number. What? Okay, that's fine. Hunter, he's a Heisman Trophy winner. But Shedeur Sanders? Come on. They were 13-12, one game above 500 with him as quarterback. I think he was out one of those games, so it's probably he's probably 500, I think, in 2 years. So that is ridiculous. There were great number 2s ahead of Shedeur Sanders, but don't have a problem with Travis Hunter, no doubt, having his number retired. Okay, that's all. I love Gary. I can't wait to hear from Gary coming up after this newscast. He is hilarious. 50 in Brighton, 49 in Parker, 53 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The spring weather we've been enjoying is going to come to a crashing end with a strong cold front. Temperatures today will reach the upper 60s and lower 70s, but it will get a lot colder by late this afternoon and evening. And later today, there will be scattered rain showers and thunderstorms developing. Rain and snow turning to wet snow tonight. Could see an inch or two on the grassy areas by morning. Lows upper 20s. Much colder Friday. Highs only 30s. Lingering snow Friday night. Lows 20s. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. While we were at CPAC, we made lots of friends. I love CPAC. I always have a good time.
Some of us made friends.
Dude, you became the notorious Bill Thorpe.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And you get to meet lots of characters. And when I say characters, I mean people that are just kind of fun to talk to. And they're unique and interesting. One of them is Gary Barv. Now, Gary is already running for president in 2028. But now I heard both at CPAC, and I've heard Trump float the idea of a third term by President Trump. So why does Gary hate President Trump so much? He thinks he's got to replace him. I doubt he does, but I'm going to ask him that question. He joins us now on the Jeff and Bill Show. Gary, thanks for being on the program.
Yeah, good morning. Welcome back.
Hey, Jeff, Bill, how are you? Great to be back on the Jeff and Bill Show. And hey, you said, Jeff, 9 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. It's about 8 o'clock here, but I was watching your show earlier, and I said, he just announced that I'm going to be on the show, so I just decided to log on a little bit earlier. I'm happy to be on your show, Jeff. Happy to be on your show, Bill, as well. And I'm the biggest, most loyal supporter of President Trump in the country, and I'll answer your question as well, Jeff. Let me quickly introduce myself to your great viewers and listeners. My name is Gary Barr. I am a youth supporter of our President Donald J. Trump, a proud Republican of the Republican Party that belongs to our President Donald J. Trump. And I'm officially running for President of the United States of America in the 2028 election to help President Trump make America great again, keep America great, and to help him save America. And I'm running because I love President Trump. I love our country, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. And I love our great American people, and I want to help President Trump make America great again. That's why I'm running. And Jeff, you asked me the question about President Trump's, potential third-term run. And, I have been asked this question a lot in the previous few weeks and months. And, look, the Constitution, I believe, says 2 terms, but I've said this to a lot of people, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it consistently. If President Donald J. Trump is top of the ticket, on the ballot, top of the ballot, in the 2028 presidential election cycle, I will drop out of the election. And I wouldn't be happy about it. I know Michael Stapleford from the Good Morning Keys radio show asked me this question recently as well. And I said, I won't be happy about it, but I'll do it because I love President Trump. I love our country, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, and I love our great American people. And I am the biggest, most loyal supporter of President Trump, and have been since my first election cycle campaign in the 2020 election cycle. So great to be on your show, Jeff and Bill, and, great meeting you, Jeff, at CPAC 2025. I know I said to you that I thought you got the best out of me during that interview, just your energy and your cowboy hat. I don't think you're wearing a cowboy hat today, but your cowboy hat is fantastic, Jeff. And Bill, you and I think you were online on that interview, and great to be with you as well.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
I'm not allowed to leave the state only under certain conditions. But you can understand that after a conversation. I'm teasing.
He said
he was fun.
He said he's not allowed to leave the state. But
yes.
Now, Gary,
I thought Bill and I had a really nice. I said it on social media. I thought Bill and I, during our first interview in February of this year, had a very, I would say, a combative debate, but a very respectful debate as well. And I thought a very friendly debate.
Oh yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Again, very happy to be on your show, gentlemen.
Gary, let's talk about 2028, because even if Donald Trump doesn't run, everybody looks at J.D. Vance and goes, J.D.'s doing a great job. Why wouldn't J.D. Vance be the best next step for the MAGA movement?
Well, you asked me this question during the previous interview as well. I'm happy to answer again. Hey, by the way, Jeff and Bill, I cannot see your videos. Are you on video on my screen? Is that something?
Yeah, we can see you. You're looking great. So even if you can't see us, everything looks great on our end. You look very handsome.
I'm much more thin. I'm much younger and have a lot more hair. I'm just teasing.
All right, so you've been working out a lot, right?
Yes,
you've been working out a lot since the last 2 months.
Yes, so much. As far as you know, yes. Yeah, continue, my friend.
Well, Jeff, you just said I look very handsome, and President Trump said during one of his speeches many years back, he said, there was this person. President Trump was saying this at a speech. He said, there was this person who said, President Trump, you look. Or at that time, Donald Trump, you look very handsome. And President Trump said, can you believe this? I love this person. And so I love you, Jeff, for saying that. Thank you very much. But let's talk about J.D. Vance a little bit. I know we talked about it during the previous interview. Look, J.D. Vance is, in my opinion, a docile cheeks beta male. And, I said this during the previous interview as well. And, I call him a doofus. J.D. Vance, I call him a doofus. Now, let me say this. President Trump made the right decision by selecting J.D. Vance as his vice president. Nothing against that decision. I love President Trump. President Trump made the right decision. Nothing against that decision. But look, you need a certain type of personality to be president of the United States of America, and you need a certain type of personality to be vice president of the United States of America. And, President Trump has that alpha male, I am president of the United States of America ability that I believe I have as well. And, J.D. Vance compliments President Trump in a really nice way. J.D. Vance has that docile cheeks, beta male personality, and he sort of stays in the background, and that's fine. And, I call him docile for that reason and beta male for that reason, but I call J.D. Vance cheeks, beta male. And, I think I said this during the previous interview as well, Jeff. I call him cheeks, beta male, and I sort of say this tongue in cheek. But I say it because I believe J.D. Vance is conscious about his big cheeks, and he covers it up with his beard. And, I sort of feel it almost, if you look at some of J.D. Vance's previous videos without the beard, it seems like he has 2 or 3 pomegranates in his mouth. And, that's a perpetual situation for him. And when he puts on the beard, it looks a little bit better, but it still looks like he's got these big cheeks. And I think he's very conscious about his big cheeks. And I sort of say this tongue in cheek. But look, a lot of people have said, why are you attacking the vice president of the United States of America, J.D. Vance? And the reason for that is very simple. I want to knock J.D. Vance out of the election on the political stage. Politically, I want to knock him out of the election if he decides to run for president in the 2028 election cycle, because I want to win this election, and not just for some power grab, Jeff and Bill. I genuinely believe that I'm the right man to lead our great United States of America 2028 and beyond as the 48th president of the United States of America, to make America great again. Keep America great and save America as a Republican.
I want to ask you about that. Gary Barve, he's the candidate for president. You can go to his website, Gary Barve, BARVE, foramerica.com. Gary, what experience do you have to be president of the United States? Have you won local office? Have you won state office?
Great question. So I'll start by saying this. I'm not comparing myself to President Trump when I say what I'm going to say, but I'll say it. The first office that President Donald J. Trump ran for is the President of the United States of America. I'll start with that, and I'll say this. I have been involved in the Trump Republican Party as the biggest, most loyal supporter of President Trump when I ran for city council for the first time in the 2020 election cycle in Santa Clara, California. And, we had a tremendous result. We got 23% of the vote. Our campaign got 23% of the vote in a 3-person race. And there were, to my memory, Jeff and Bill, there were only about 17% Republicans in the district that I ran in, and I ran as the biggest supporter of President Trump. I wore a red Make Santa Clara Great hat during that campaign, had a tremendous result. I have run for U.S. Congress as well in the 2024 primary election in Florida, in the 23rd district in Florida, again as a Republican supporter of the man, President Donald J. Trump. And I'll say this, I have taken on criminals and gangs and cartels and drug dealers and drug smugglers and human traffickers in a way that I believe only President Donald J. Trump has done in the history of our country on the political stage. Again, I'm not comparing my courage with the courage that our great police, sheriffs, ICE, military, veterans, firefighters, and first responders have. I have tremendous respect for their selflessness and their courage. But I'm saying on the political stage, I'll give you an example, Jeff and Bill. There are these gangs that have come into our country, I'll give you an example. Tren de Aragua, right? There's this gang, Tren de Aragua, they call themselves. And, the first thing I said to myself when I heard about this gang, Tren de Aragua, is what a stupid name for a gang, right? Who names their gang Tren de Aragua? It's a stupid name, and I know you and I talked about this, Jeff, during the previous interview as well. I know you're in Colorado, and, this Tren de Aragua gang took over an entire building in Colorado recently, and I know you visited that building and, broadcasted on your show as well. And, these are vicious criminals. There's another gang, MS-13. These are bad people. They literally cut people up just for fun. And so just to show a little bit of courage, I'll say it right now. This is a live broadcast, Jeff and Bill. I'll say it right now. My direct message to any criminals, gangs, cartels such as Tren de Aragua and MS-13, any gang members that are listening into this interview or watching this interview right now, my direct message to these gang members is get the hell out of our great United States of America. If you don't, we will incarcerate members of your gang, or we will kick out of our country members of your gang. And I believe, President Trump is doing that in a fantastic way. You see the situation with a lot of illegal immigrant gang members being deported back to their country of origin. And I think that's a fantastic thing for our country. Look, keeping the American people safe and secure is, in my opinion, and I believe in President Donald J. Trump's opinion as well, the most important thing that a president or a candidate for president or really any American can do for our great American people. And I will say this, if I get elected 48th President of the United States of America, America will be, if not the safest country in the world, it will be one of the most safest countries in the world. I believe it will happen prior to that under the leadership of the man, President Donald J. Trump. But I will get this done if I'm elected 48th President of the United States of America. I genuinely believe that law and order, police, sheriffs, ICE, military, veterans, firefighters, first responders, law and order is the most important thing, or I would say it's the fabric that holds our country together and makes us one of the greatest country in the world.
Now that is the voice of Gary Barb. Sorry to interrupt you there, Gary. That's the voice of Gary Barb. He is running to be president in 2028, but with the caveat that if Donald Trump is afforded the possibility of a third term, he will drop out. I want to dovetail off of that a little bit there with you, Gary, talking about the gang members and specifically the idea of deporting people into the El Salvador prison that we've been discussing. Yep. The first thing is, I want to have your opinion on, and again, because we don't want to go through the name, etc., it's easiest just to refer to him as the Maryland man that is accused of being an MS-13 member. And
Kilmar, I think you're talking about the Kilmar.
Yes. Yep, exactly.
Kilmar.
That's him. Yep.
Kilmar Garcia, I think.
Yeah,
Kilmar Garcia.
What's your opinion? Do you believe that the Supreme Court is right, that the U.S. government needs to facilitate the return of that man, or is Donald Trump right that he should stay there? What's your opinion?
President Trump. Sorry, go on.
No, what's your opinion on that? Who's right, Supreme Court or Trump?
It's a very simple. Yes, I believe this is Bill asking the question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, most definitely I'm with President Donald J. Trump on that. Look, there's evidence that Kilmar Garcia is a MS-13 gang member. There has been reported incidents about Kilmar Garcia interacting with MS-13 gang members at a parking lot. I believe there's evidence of that. There's evidence about some, investigation or things like that about this Kilmar Garcia person. I believe he's a MS-13 gang member. I know there's a Democrat senator, I believe from Maine, who is actually visiting El Salvador to try and get the MS-13 gang member back into our country. And look, I think that's what the Democrat Party has come down to. And it's a very sad situation for our country, but really it's a sad situation for our great American people because the Republican Party, and it is President Donald J. Trump's Republican Party, is determined to get the illegal immigrant gang members such as MS-13, Tren de Aragua back to their country of origin under the, I believe, the Alien Enemies Act.
Alien Enemies Act. Yeah, so Gary Barb, candidate for U.S. president. Hang on, Gary. Gary, hang on a sec. I understand what you're saying. The Democrat Party is going to embrace the gangsters, and that's who they are right now. But what I want to ask you about is, so are you saying because the gentleman we're talking about out of the MS-13 alleged member out of Maryland, there was an order in 2019 that said while he is illegal, he should not be deported back to El Salvador because of gang persecution. So were the courts wrong there, or was Donald Trump wrong when he just, despite that order, decided to send him back to El Salvador? And would you make the same decision?
Well, the first thing I'll say is I support President Trump. Look, I'm not privy to all the legal, lawful information and legal context when it comes to situations like this. I'm a candidate for president. You need the power of the seat to have all the information. So I don't want to make a conclusion on whether the court is right. I will say the court is not right, but I don't want to make a determined conclusion on that. All I'm saying is under the Alien Enemies Act, President Trump has the right to send an illegal immigrant or gang member back to his country of origin. And I support that completely. I will not fight, Bill, if you're trying to say that I don't know if you support this or not, but I will say this. I'm not going to fight for an illegal MS-13 gang member to be brought back into our country when the gang has created havoc in our country. I will not support that. I'm with President Donald J. Trump completely on this. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, El Salvador has said, at least I saw the news a few minutes back. I don't know if that's changed in the last few minutes. But I believe El Salvador has said they're not going to allow the Democrat senator from Maine
they didn't allow him to see him.
He
only met with the vice president of El Salvador yesterday. He didn't have any access to the prison, and they wouldn't let him talk to him or meet them. And nor should he have had any access.
to hear Jeff's opinion on this. Jeff, where are you on this?
Oh, I'm thrilled he's gone. No, he shouldn't have been in this country anyways. He's from El Salvador.
Exactly.
Send him back
And
to
I'll
El
tell you-
Salvador. And if you don't want him in the prison, well, then it's up to El Salvador to let him go. But this guy hit his then girlfriend, I think now wife. There's reports of domestic violence, of human trafficking.
Yeah.
No, this guy's not good. Get him out of there. And more importantly, it sends a message to everybody else. If you're not here legally, it's time to go. So
exactly right.
and then
It's
I
a
point out
deterrent, right?
I point out too that everyone's really concerned about process, due process. We didn't follow the process with this guy. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Okay, where was that concern when they were literally crossing the border illegally to come up here? You didn't care about the process then.
Jeff, I think you make an interesting point. Look, I do believe in law and order. I do believe in due process, but I am saying that in the context, we are within the bounds of law and order right now under the Alien Enemies Act for President Donald J. Trump to deport this gang member, MS-13 gang member. I'm talking about the MS-13 gang member, Kilmar Garcia. I'm saying under the Alien Enemies Act, President Trump is within his legal rights as Commander-in-Chief, as the 47th President of the United States of America, to send this gang member back to El Salvador. And look, I believe in law and order. Don't get me wrong, Jeff. Don't get me wrong, Bill. I believe in law and order. We are a country of law and order. What I'm saying is, from the information that I have, President Donald J. Trump is within his right to send this illegal alien gang member, MS-13 gang member, Kilmar Garcia, back to El Salvador. And that's why I supported that.
Gary, we're talking with Gary Barv. Gary Barv wants to be president of the United States. We met him at CPAC. Now, we got a question here coming in on the text lines, Gary, that were you born here in America? Because with your accent, it doesn't sound like it. Thoughts?
Yeah, I was born in Summit, New Jersey. By the way, who's asking the question? Is it one of your audience members?
We have callers and texters that so we get a lot of different voices
That is
throughout
awesome.
the show.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank the audience member for tuning in and for watching the interview, and appreciate the question as well. Hope that the audience member will vote for me, right? Vote Gary Barr for president. I'm the biggest, most loyal supporter of President Donald J. Trump in the country. To answer the question, yes, I was born in Summit, New Jersey in 1984, so I'm 40 years old. And I do have an accent. I think you're right, Jeff. It's very obvious. I have a little bit of an accent. And, my family relocated to India when I was about 4.5 years old. And, I would have loved to grow up in my country, the United States of America. But, at 4.5 years old, you really do not have much of a say in these decisions. But I came back home to the United States of America right after my undergrad. And I have lived in Massachusetts, Texas. I have lived in California, Virginia, Florida, Iowa, and I now live in Arizona. So, look, I have been asked this question before, about my accent and things like that. And I say this, I am American, and I have President Donald J. Trump, Republican American blood in me. And I will someday save America.
I believe that 110%, that you have red, white, and blue coursing through your veins from the tippy top of your head all the way down to the edge of your toes. I do not doubt that. You're listening to Gary Barv, who is running for president in 2028, hopefully on the Republican ticket. But if and only if current President Donald Trump
It will be on the Republican ticket. I'm a registered.
Yep. And the only reason I said hopefully is because that's only if Donald Trump cannot find a way to run for a third term. If he can't, then Gary's in the race. If Donald Trump can find that third term path, then Gary will happily demur until the next possible election that he can run for president and continue Donald Trump's great work, is what he's telling us this morning. Now, I know that we need to wrap up our conversation here in just a second, Gary, but I want to ask you about one of the big domestic platforms. We've been looking externally a lot. Now I want to talk about internal, more about economics and Donald Trump's plan for tariffs. Do you agree with his plan on tariffs? Would you continue it? Why? Why not?
Great question. You touched upon the U.S. flag. You said red, white, and blue. Could I quickly comment on our great American flag, please? I love our great American flag. And
Sure.
I've come up with, and I'm going to answer your question about tariffs as well, Bill. But look, I love our great American flag, and I've made a policy about our great American red, white, and blue, our great American flag. Look, when Jimmy Carter died recently, right, our great American flag was flying what they call half-staff or half-mast. And, there's a great speech by President Trump where he says, have you challenged accepted wisdom? And I said to myself, why is our great American flag flying half staff or half mast? And, it is to show respect to certain situations and events. And so I said to myself, I want to see our great American flag fly high and proud, 24/7, 365, all the time. I want our friends to see our great American flag fly high and proud. I want our enemies to see our great American flag fly high and proud. I want our American people to see our great American flag fly high and proud all the time. And so I made a campaign promise, and it's on my campaign social media. If I get elected 48th President of the United States of America, the American flag will always fly high and proud, full staff, full mast, all the time. And we will find an alternate way to show respect to certain situations and events as a country. I support that. But the flag will always fly high and proud. And I think it'll have a tremendous patriotic, positive, emotional impact on our great American people. And let me answer your question about tariffs. I support President Donald J. Trump's decision. I think you're talking about what President Trump called Liberation Day. And, he imposed tariffs on about 180 countries, or probably a few more than that, 180 countries across the world. And he called it reciprocal tariffs, and I call it reciprocal tariffs with kindness, because I think, look, what's happened is a lot of these countries, friendly countries, countries that are not very friendly to us, and countries that are I would say some of these countries are enemies, have been ripping off our great United States of America with large tariffs. And, it impacts our great American people, the American worker, the American bartenders, restaurant workers, farmers, coal mine workers, police, sheriffs, ICE, military, veterans, firefighters, first responders, our great American motorcycle riders, truckers. It impacts our great American people who work really, really hard to make a living. And it is your Republican Party, it is your country, and we will not stand for these other countries ripping our country off with huge tariffs.
How is that, Gary? How do tariffs rip off America? How do you feel that happens?
Great question. So here's how tariffs work. Right? I'll give you a quick example. Let's say, and I'll quickly say this. Because of these tariffs, now what's going to happen is industry and businesses and manufacturing is going to come back into our United States of America, and jobs are going to be created not in China, not in Mexico, not in some other country. Jobs are going to be created in our great United States of America. And guess what happens when jobs are created, when companies are started, manufacturing is started, facilities, factories are started in America? What happens is American people get hired. You get hired. American people get hired. American people get jobs. And that is a tremendous thing for our country. And look, I want to see our American companies to make a lot of profit. I have nothing against American companies making money. I have nothing against American companies making profit. But I do not want our American companies to make a lot of profit at the cost and expense of our great American people. And so here's where tariffs comes into the picture, right, Bill? I'm going to answer your question right now. So here's what happens, right? A lot of companies, I'll give you an example, right? Let's take an example of an American, let's say a car manufacturing company, right? Just for sake of an example. So a lot of these companies want to manufacture outside our United States of America and bring the product back into our United States of America and sell the product in our United States of America to our American people. And one of the reasons for that is, let's say they build a manufacturing plant in Mexico, right? There's cheap labor in Mexico, and so they hire the people in Mexico. I'm taking an example. And so they have higher margins because of the low cost to make the product, and then they sell it at a price in America. And because of the higher margins, the company makes a higher profit. And look, when this happens, the American people do not get the advantage of job opportunities, right? And so here's where tariffs comes into the picture, right? If I get elected 48th President of the United States of America, I will say this wherever practical to the American companies or companies building their product outside America and bringing it back into our country. I will say, I will impose a 20% tariff, 50% tariff, 100% tariff, or as a deterrent, 1,000% tariff on the goods that you bring from outside America to sell within America. Here's what happens. When you do this, the American companies or any companies realize they do not have the economic viability to now build outside America and sell in America, because the tariffs sort of overtake the advantage of building the product outside our country.
Or you
And guess
could
what
be
happens?
killing the entire industry because it's too expensive for consumers to afford it. So the
I
industry
will
would just
answer
die.
that. I will answer that question.
Well,
I will
now,
answer
Gary,
that.
Unfortunately, Gary, we got to go.
Yeah, we're running out.
Gary,
Hold
I
on.
hate this. We got to
Gary,
go.
I got 2 quick questions for you. We got to run here
Hold on,
real
hold on.
quick.
Jeff, my friend, let me
Well, we
quickly
got-
answer another quick thing. The other advantage is, see, now jobs are created in America because the companies come back into our U.S. But look, I support the corporate tax to go down from 21% to 15% as well, because that's an added incentive for these companies to now build in America, manufacture in America. And I know there's been some conversation about this tax reduction, and at this time I'm supporting it. Obviously, you need at some point the power of the seat, the power of the presidency to have all the information to make a determination on this. But at this time, I'm supporting the low taxes.
Now, Gary, we've got to get to a break here. We're coming up on a hard break. Gary Barr for America. If you want to learn more about him, Gary, real quick, Donald Trump's mantra: "Make America great again." Then keep America great again. Your mantra is
make America great again. Keep America great and save America. And I'll end it with this. I don't know if you want me to stay on for the segment after the commercial break, but I'll say this. I respect all religions, but I'm Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. I believe the Bible is the Word of God. And I genuinely believe Jesus Christ is with President Trump. Jesus Christ is with our country, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. And Jesus Christ is with you, our great American people. And America will be saved. We will save America, and it's America first all the way. Thank you very much.
Gary Barr, thank you. Running for president already. You're in 2028. All right, I want to talk to you about our friends over at Advanced Hair Restoration. Look, if you're losing your hair and desire to have it back, then Advanced Hair Restoration has the easiest guaranteed solution. Their simple one-day treatment offers life-changing results. I've seen it with my own eyes. Guys, it's not magic, but close to it. They put hair where you need it the most, and bam, it grows. It's actually science. Advanced Hair has it all. Top-rated Dr. Tanya Paul's modern technology, and best of all, you get your own natural hair that begins regrowing the very next day. Advanced Hair even guarantees it will grow for life. So schedule your free consultation now at 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you'll get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver and has changed the lives of tens of thousands of people. So don't wait. Check out the before and afters online for yourself at 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. All right, Gary Barr running for president. Bill, what do you think his chances are?
Oh, gosh, I would right now. I mean, I like Gary a lot, but I think he's running like it's slim and none. And I think that Slim has no chance. So that's kind of it. Although, big shout out to Adam Walker, who was trying to be a problem and made me laugh out loud. He goes, go and ask him if God has testicles. And I'm like, Adam, you're awful. And I appreciate you so much. That is fantastic. I can't get credit for that funny question or that funny response. That is great. Yeah. Gary, I love where Gary's heart is. But I think that maybe his internal compass might be a little bit misguided based on the mountain he is trying to climb at this point.
Well, it's a big one.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to this because he got into a long conversation on tariffs.
Yeah.
Okay, Trump self-financed a big portion of his.
Yeah.
Does he have the billions of dollars to do so?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe he bought a lot of those Trump sneakers. He can resell them on the sneaker market.
8422. Well, at least Gary's really assertive and not shy.
Oh, he is.
He is definitely not shy.
Gary's a lot of fun. I like him a lot.
We appreciate you, Gary. All right, we'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, Gary Barr joining the Jeff and Bill Show, already kicking off the 2028 presidential election.
No one is going to outwork him. I really like Gary. Gary's fun.
We love Gary.
Yeah. Again, I think his
I got
heart's
a
in the right
call
place.
from a guy in 2016. Said he was called by God to run for president. It was not Donald Trump.
Wow. Could it have possibly been a wrong number?
Well, I said to whomever God calls, he equips.
Yes.
Best of luck to you, my friend.
That is good.
So
Fantastic.
I don't know whatever happened to that guy either. I should try to figure out who that was.
Well, maybe God had a different plan. That he said, nope, I think you misunderstood the message I sent you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I didn't say run for president.
It takes two for communication to work.
Yeah. It was kind of like telephone.
Understanding
Yeah,
is important to that.
Yeah, it could be. I meant run to the store to get more cheese. It's not. I didn't say president. Sorry.
Look, are you ready to transform your kitchen or bathroom into a stunning masterpiece? Look no further than The Art of Granite, your premier destination for exquisite granite, marble, and quartz countertops. For over 15 years, Mitch Floria, owner of The Art of Granite, has been crafting and installing custom countertops, fireplaces, showers, and more. Their team of experts will guide you through the selection process, ensuring you find the perfect stone to match your style and budget. Visit their showroom in Golden or browse their online inventory at theartofgranite.com. Discover the endless possibilities for your home renovation project. Now, this is an amazing deal, everybody. Mention KNUS and get a free bathroom countertop with new kitchen countertops. Can you imagine that? Not only do you get to do your kitchen, you get a free bathroom countertop, or choose a free kitchen or bathroom sink with any countertop package. So they're going to help improve your home through and through. Don't wait. Transform your home into the oasis you deserve. Schedule your free consultation with Mitch today. Go to theartofgranite.com. That's theartofgranite.com. Mention KNUS for those exclusive savings and transform your kitchen or bathroom dreams into reality with theartofgranite.com. Look, a lot of us got those golden handcuffs. We're not moving houses anytime soon with interest rates the way they are.
Oh, God, yes. There's no way you're going to move.
You know, you may need to redo what you got. And theartofgranite.com.
And you may have been in that place for a little while, and you're looking at, it would really make this thing nice. It would really make it better. It would really kind of bring our ideas to life. It is the idea of that granite countertop. They're so easy to take care of. They're durable. Get rid of that thing that's been around for 10, 15 years and go with a master craftsman. And the best part about it is when you go up to his showroom in Golden, you can help hand pick out the exact slab of stone that you want. These aren't samples, and they show up with something different, and you're like, oh, well, the colors are a little bit. No. You pick the exact thing. Plus, he's got great deals, and all of it is crafted by hand by him. This is a work of art that you then will add to your kitchen or bath. And we all know that house improvements, when you want to raise that value, that kitchen and that bathroom
And for the
maximizing value,
taxes.
that's where it comes from. So yes, make a call. Art of Granite. They're going to do you solid.
They'll do great. All right, we'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, should you be required to show an ID to vote? We talked with Ken Cuccinelli about the SAVED Act in Congress and the UK Supreme Court ruling trans women can't be defined as women. Does that mean the trans debate's over? Hardly. If you missed Billy and I debating all of this, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast.
I was going to say 2 words, and you know those 2 words I'm going to say, but I'm not going to say them at the end of the show because I might have to still go talk to management afterwards.
Look, reliability isn't optional when business security is on the line. It's essential. Businesses trust alarm detection systems for the highest level of service and expertise. Think about the time you could be saving using one source for cameras, keycard access, fire and intrusion systems, expert alarm installation and testing by highly trained technicians. Give ADS a visit today. Go to adsalarm.com. That's adsalarm.com to learn more about how alarm detection systems can serve your business. All right, I'm heading down to the state capitol for a rally against the trans crazy bill. You can join us down there at 1 o'clock. You've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader. This is 710 KNUS.